Chapter 245. C's World. In the world where the gods of Lu Lucio's world lived, there was a battle that could determine the future of history. A huge scarlet body, a ferocious head, a huge palm that covered the sky, a leg that was as big as the heavens. This 1,000-meter-tall titan was the enemy that Rei Minkai had to face now. Ridiculous. Courage? It's just an excuse to satisfy your selfish desires. People from another world. In Charles's thunderous voice, the Scarlet Titan waved its huge palm and set off a storm, slapping down on the brave king below. Boom! There was a loud explosion, and a wave of dust blew up. In the rolling dust, Euphemia and Shyamuna, who were standing far away, could not avoid being covered by the dust. However, they were protected by the red light from the scarlet golden lion head medal in Euphemia's hand. They were not hurt by the dust at all. Princess Shyamuna, don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you. Euphemia said softly as she turned her head slightly to look at the astonished Shyamuna. Yes, Your Highness Princess Euphemia. After witnessing the changes in Rei Minkai and State Zero, Shyamuna subconsciously became more respectful to Euphemia, who had a close relationship with Rei Minkai and State Zero. Bang! Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. The Scarlet Titan's huge palm seemed to have been hit by something and was slapped up high. What? Charles was shocked and quickly looked down. He was unharmed. The brave king, who should have been flattened by the giant palm, was standing in his original position. At most, the ground around the brave king had sunk a little. Although you're a little big, is that all you have? Charles. Rei Minkai raised his arms above his head to block the crimson giant and slowly let go of his arms. As the brave king's eyes lit up, Rei Minkai shouted with great vigor. Charles gritted his teeth. The scarlet giant raised its right arm and waved it forcefully. The black rainstorm from before reappeared. A terrifying number of black Sunderland once again appeared in front of the brave king, attempting to stop him from advancing. This trick won't work anymore. Charles. The brave king took a step forward with his left foot, lowered his waist, and moved his right arm back. Immediately after, 4 rows of evenly distributed jet grooves appeared on his right arm. TSK. Buzz buzz. As the flame shield of the jet nozzle moved, the brave king's right arm began to spin rapidly. As his right arm rotated faster and faster, Rei Minkai shouted out a name. Flying drill jet fist. Boom! Before he finished speaking, his right fist, which was rotating to the extreme, was propelled by the propulsion engine in his right arm. It whistled as it flew out of the brave king's body, launching a powerful attack at the Scarlet Giant. At the same time, a powerful storm was generated in the path of the flying drill jet fist, shattering all the black Sunderland in the path of the flying drill jet fist. In just the blink of an eye, more than half of the black Sunderland created by the flying drill jet fist had been shattered by the flying drill jet fist. The remaining ones were lucky enough to survive because they were at the edge of the flight path and were not affected by the storm caused by the flying drill jet fist. This scene infuriated Charles. Don't think you can defeat me like this. Rei Minkai. Facing the flying drill jet fist that was charging in front of him, the Scarlet Giant, under the control of the furious Charles, waved its right arm forcefully, trying to block the incoming flying drill jet fist. However, the moment the Scarlet Giant's right hand hit the flying drill jet fist, Charles realized that compared to the Scarlet Giant, this fist was undoubtedly the size of an ant. It actually had the power of Mount Tai, making the Scarlet Giant unable to send it flying. What? The Scarlet Giant's strength continued to increase, but the power of the flying drill jet fist did not seem to have any signs of exhaustion. This kind of change made Charles extremely shocked. Rei Minkai. Facing this fact, which was undoubtedly a slap in the face, Charles roared Rei Minkai's name. At the same time, he controlled the Scarlet Giant to raise its left hand and slammed it towards its right hand. Boom! Under the superposition of the power of the left and right hands, the flying drill jet fist that had been competing with the Scarlet Giant's right hand was finally sent flying. However, the Brave King's flying drill jet fist was sent flying. Charles found that he had lost the brave king's trace. Where is it? Before Charles had time to look around, a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. Over there. As soon as the scarlet giant raised its head, its faceless face suddenly opened. A burning black-red flame immediately shot out from the open gap towards the scarlet giant's head. Boom! As soon as the black-red flame left the scarlet giant's body, it immediately condensed crazily, condensing again and again until it condensed into a black-red light that was like a beam of light, piercing the sky. And there was the brave king, who had disappeared in front of Charles. As it turned out, while Charles was dealing with the flying drill jet fist, Ray Minkai had made the brave king launch a surprise attack from high up in the air, an environment that should have been under the scarlet giant's control. However, this plan was only halfway executed when Charles discovered it and launched a terrifying attack at the brave king, who was in the air and had nowhere to hide. Faced with this desperate attack, Ray Minkai did not panic. Instead, he calmly controlled the brave king to raise his left arm and strike with his palms together. A faintly visible energy force field immediately formed in the brave king's palm and quickly spread out, firmly protecting the brave king within. Protection shield. Boom. It was quick to say and quick to act. The moment the protection shield was fully deployed, the black-red light beam shot by the scarlet giant hit the protection shield deployed by the brave king heavily. Although the protection shield deployed by the brave king was not destroyed by the black-red light beam, due to the powerful force of the black-red light beam, the brave king, who was in the air and had nowhere to borrow power, could only accept the fact that the black-red light beam hit him even higher up in the sky. However, this was not the end of it. The brave king's protection shield did not only have a defensive function. In the settings of the original brave king, this protection shield not only had the ability to block the enemy's attack, but it also had the ability to reflect the enemy's attack back. Although in the settings, the success rate of reflection was infinitely close to 0. However, this did not prevent Ray Minkai from replicating it in this world. Huh, Charles, take this. Ray Minkai's eyes widened, and his imagination burned wildly. In the dazzling light that erupted from the collision between the protection shield and the black-red light beam, a distorted light source appeared. The appearance of this light source made Ray Minkai's imagination concentrate again until the thing he imagined really appeared in front of his eyes. Charles, have a taste of your own attack. The brave king's left arm suddenly stretched forward, and the black-red light beam that was affected by the distorted light source quickly formed a hexagram on the surface of the protection shield, was immediately pushed back by the brave king. What? The black-red hexagram fell from the sky, and only when it hit the scarlet giant did Charles react. Boom! At this moment, Charles had a taste of the attack launched by the scarlet giant that he was so proud of. Moreover, in this attack, the scarlet giant was heavily knocked down. The indomitable scarlet giant that was like a giant tower in myths that connected heaven and earth fell down. On his chest, there was a hexagonal scar caused by the black-red hexagonal star. Although, in a few breaths, this scar was healed by the scarlet giant's powerful recovery ability. But Charles's anger burned even more fiercely. Charles, who had deliberately accumulated and sacrificed everything to complete this system that could change the course of history, could not accept the result of being defeated by a stranger from another world when his plan was about to succeed. As he became more and more exasperated, Charles suddenly saw Euphemia, who was firmly protected by the scarlet-eyed golden lion head medallion. Euphemia. Charles's heart turned cold, and his eyes revealed a cold glint without concealment. Kill her. With a command, the black Sunderland that had survived the storm caused by the flying drill jet punch rushed toward Euphemia and Shyamna in a frenzy. Your Highness, why don't we retreat from C's world now? Otherwise, I'm afraid our existence will hinder the Lion Knight. Seeing that the situation was not good, Shyamna immediately suggested to Euphemia that they should retreat temporarily. Logically speaking, Shyamna naturally did not care too much about her own life. But Euphemia was different. Although she had the titles of the Empire's princess and the Lion Knight's close friend, Euphemia was in fact just an ordinary person. If she had any accident in C's world, it might affect her body in the real world, and she might even lose her life. No, I'll stay here. Princess Shyamna. Unexpectedly, facing the swarming Black Sunderland, Euphemia showed a determined smile. Ray Minkai and I are still one body of State Zero. Our community, with a shared destiny, is inseparable. As Euphemia spoke, a storm suddenly descended from the sky and shattered the Black Sunderland that were rushing toward Euphemia and Shyamna. Are you okay? UFFI. It was the flying drill jet punch. As the Black Sunderland army was annihilated, Ray Minkai's voice came from the sky. At the same time, the brave king's valiant and majestic steel body landed in front of Euphemia and Shyamna, protecting them firmly behind him. I'm fine, Kai. Euphemia raised the scarlet, golden lion head medal in her hand. Ray Minkai responded, then looked at the scarlet giant. What a surprise. No, this is also within my expectations. Charles, you are indeed a cold-blooded father. Whether it is Lucio and his sister, or Euphemia, you could be so decisive and cold-blooded to kill your own children. The corner of Charles's eyes twitched, but he did not say anything. At this point, any words had lost their charm, ability, and even the ability to persuade people. What was left was only a contest of strength. Pa! All of a sudden, lumps appeared on the scarlet giant's huge body. At the same time, these lumps opened up at an extremely fast speed like a closed eye. Not good. Kai, quick, this guy's going all out. Seeing this, State Zero's voice immediately rang in Ray Minkai's mind. There was no need for State Zero to remind him of this. When State Zero's voice rang, the brave king lowered his waist and once again used all his strength to throw out the flying drill jet punch. In an instant, the storm caused by the flying drill jet punch completely buried the brave king's figure, causing the scarlet giant to be unable to capture his figure. Petty tricks. Don't think that this is enough to escape from my wrath. Ray Minkai. Wong. Charles's anger finally erupted at this moment. Black and red light beams of various sizes shot out from the eyes all over the scarlet giant's body like a storm. As it swept across the sky, under Charles's control, it gradually focused on the spot where the brave king had been earlier. However, the terrifying amount of black and red light beams did not hit the brave king, but were blocked by the storm caused by the flying drill jet punch. It's just a petty trick. The result has never changed. In the midst of Charles's roar, the black and red light beams blocked by the flying drill jet punch suddenly increased by 30%. In the blink of an eye, the flying drill jet punch was burned into a brownish-red color, almost to the point of melting. Boom! Finally, the flying drill jet punch could not withstand the high temperature brought by the black and red light beams and exploded violently. However, a cold light flashed in the thick smoke caused by the flying drill jet punch's self-explosion. Take this. Charles. Split. Screwdriver. Ray Minkai shouted loudly. The moment the cold light appeared, it resounded through the sky. At the same time, the cold light broke through the thick smoke. Before the Scarlet Giant and Charles could react, it stabbed the Scarlet Giant's left foot. It pierced through the Scarlet Giant's left foot and stabbed into the ground before stopping. It's just the left foot. So what if I give it to you? Ray Minkai. Die. Although the Scarlet Giant's left foot was stabbed, it did not suffer much damage because of its size. It lowered its head, and the terrifying black and red light beams lit up. At the same time, the left foot that was pierced by the screwdriver split into black shadows, trying to bind the brave king tightly. However, Ray Minkai smiled. Boom! A flame erupted from the depths of the earth's crust without warning. It split the ground within a radius of 1,000 meters around the brave king and the Scarlet Giant at an extremely fast speed. It quickly opened up a battle domain that was independent of this world from the Sea World. The Scarlet Giant's center of gravity that suddenly lost its footing tilted. The light beam that was supposed to hit the brave king had no choice but to streak across the ground and shoot toward the empty sky. looking at the scarlet giant that lost its center of gravity and fell into the battle domain. The brave king raised his hand and waved it. The split screwdriver in his right hand dissipated in a stream of light. This was also the brave king's move that was reproduced by the uniqueness of the sea world and Ray Minkai's imagination. Split screwdriver. Now is the time to decide the victory. Charles. Chapter 246. On a barren land, two demon gods stood facing each other. One was a 1,000-meter-tall scarlet giant. The other was a legendary demon god summoned from the endless sea of stars by the courage of humans. At this moment, the two demon gods stared at each other, waiting for the other to make a move. Damn it, Otherworlder! At this point in the battle, the scarlet giant had also fallen into the battle domain created by the brave king's split screwdriver. At this moment, Charles finally realized what was wrong. Power. The power from C's world could not penetrate the battle domain created by the brave king and provide support to the scarlet giant. Even though the scarlet giant was still powerful, if the battle continued to drag on like this, the scarlet giant's energy consumption would increase. Thinking of this, Charles squinted his eyes. His spirit wandered around the scarlet giant's body and quickly gathered at the scarlet giant's head, the information fragment that was connected to the scarlet giant's second heart. If I can control all the power of this fragment, the Otherworlder is nothing to be afraid of. Dong, dong, dong. A drum-like sound suddenly came from the scarlet giant's body. It was like the sound of a human's heart beating, steady and powerful. Kai, it has begun. It wants to devour our fragment. State Zero's voice was very calm. He did not panic because of Charles's actions. This was because, from the very beginning, the appearance of this battle territory was specially arranged by Lei Minkai and State Zero after a secret discussion. The purpose was to temporarily isolate the Scarlet Giant and Charles from the world of C, and to force Charles to increase the speed of devouring the fragment. I see it. After Lei Minkai responded, the brave king muttered under his breath. He suddenly burst forth with an extremely fast speed, charging towards the Scarlet Giant. Charles! Die! Charles's eyelids twitched violently as he watched the hero king charge at him again. However, due to the need to devour the shard's power as soon as possible, the Crimson Giant didn't take a step back. Instead, it once again scattered out a large number of Black Sunderland in an attempt to stop the hero king. Charles, you're too naive. This kind of move will not be able to stop me or the brave king, not even by a single step. The brave king, who was advancing at high speed, raised his right arm again as he faced the endless Black Sunderland. At the same time, a stream of light formed a perfect circle in front of the brave king that was emitting a golden radiance. Buzz! Right fist! The brave king's right fist was still spinning rapidly under the propulsion of the jet stream. It was as if the flying drill jet punch that had caused countless Black Sunderlandians to suffer grievances would once again appear on this battlefield. It's reborn. However, Ray Minkai, don't think that the same move will lead to the same result. When Charles saw the brave king's right arm rapidly condensing, he spun rapidly to a certain limit, frantically increasing the splitting power of the Black Sunderland to the maximum. In an instant, the Black Sunderland in front of the brave king turned into a black sea, surging toward the brave king like a tsunami. Faced with such a terrifying scene, Ray Minkai was not shocked. Instead, he laughed. The same move? Charles, this sentence should be given to you. Who? Say. I. Still. Will. Use. Same. Move. Will. Attack. Count. Ray Minkai shouted in a deep voice. You're too naive. Charles, take this. The brave king, who was advancing at high speed, stomped his left foot and forcefully stopped his body. At the same time, he pushed his right fist forward, which was spinning to the limit, towards the circle of light that had already formed in front of the brave king. Shattered Phantom. Hit him. Ah. Boom. The moment his right fist, which had been rapidly spinning to its limit, rushed through the circle of light, an unprecedented storm, one that was even bigger and stronger than the one caused by the drill jet punch, was instantly formed. Moreover, this storm did not follow behind the flying fist like the previous one. Instead, it rose up in front of the flying fist called the Shattered Phantom, wantonly shattering all the black Sunderland in its path. Rumble. The thunderous explosion sounded at this moment, almost becoming a rhythmic heavy metal rock song that resounded in the sky above the battlefield. No matter how the Scarlet Giant split into more and denser black Sunderland to stop the Shattered Phantom's advance, it was useless. Shattered Phantom. It was the upgraded version of the drill jet punch. Moreover, this was not the move of the Brave King. Instead, after the war, GGG deliberately created the move of the Brave King, my King Battleteeth, to make up for the combat power gap caused by Galleon's departure from the universe to investigate with the Little Protector. Originally, this move, according to common sense, could not appear on the Brave King. However, due to Ray Minkai's imagination and the uniqueness of this sea world, this move was finally recreated by Ray Minkai. Storm. The storm caused by this Shattered Phantom easily broke through the seemingly endless black Sunderland and once again rushed to the Scarlet Giant along the path that its predecessor had taken. Charles, I've said it. The same move won't work a second time. In the storm, Ray Minkai's voice sounded. Don't go too far. Don't get carried away. You're from another world. The Scarlet Giant, who was devouring the fragment, could no longer care about the progress of the fragment's devouring. In order to completely get rid of this troublesome Brave King, the Scarlet Giant's faceless face opened again, revealing the fragment that was surrounded by many tissues filled with black and red flames. Although I've only devoured half of it, it's enough to turn your ridiculous body into ashes. Ray Minkai. Boom. In Charles's ferocious face, a black and red light beam that was bigger, hotter, and more lethal than before exploded. In the blink of an eye, the terrifying black-red light beam had already made contact with the Shattered Phantom at close range. However, in the next second, the Shattered Phantom that shattered the Black Sunderland Sea was defeated. Boom! The two tigers fought. The Shattered Phantom was defeated. However, it didn't mean that the Brave King had lost this round. In the explosion of the Shattered Phantom, the fireball that had just exploded in thick smoke rolled. Whoosh! The wind blew. The Brave King's mighty figure broke through the thick smoke and rushed out of the billowing sparks. And on his right arm that had lost its right fist, there was an additional forearm that was even bigger than the previous right forearm. And in this new right fist, tightly held, was a strange weapon in the shape of a huge hammer. Whoosh! As the Brave King waved this huge hammer weapon, it easily blew away all the sparks and smoke that filled the surroundings. At the same time, the Brave King fiercely threw this huge hammer forward and hit the terrifying black and red light beam. Boom! It was just a simple attack. It was just a simple contact. This black and red light beam that caused the Shattered Phantom to die was actually just waved like this, and it had already shattered the huge hammer that was covered in golden radiance. What? The Brave King's endless attack methods shocked Charles. Although the Scarlet Giant's attack that he relied on was in line with his imagination of strength, he did not expect Ray Minkai to be able to continuously suppress the Scarlet Giant's attack with his body that was far smaller than the Scarlet Giant. However, at this point, Charles no longer had any thoughts of looking down on Ray Minkai or even scolding him. The only thing left was to try to stop Ray Minkai's next move. Charles could see that the moment the Brave King was covered in golden radiance, his goal was already very clear. That was to target the fragment that the Scarlet Giant was swallowing. I definitely won't let you succeed. The densely packed pupils opened on the Scarlet Giant's body once again. The number of light beams that almost drowned the space around the Scarlet Giant instantly exploded. This frightening scene was undoubtedly meant to stop the Brave King with the giant hammer from continuing forward. However, this was undoubtedly futile. The Brave King, who was charging at high speed, did not pay attention to the dense light beams that almost sealed off the entire sky. Instead, while charging at high speed, he waved the huge hammer in his hand slightly to block these light beam attacks. I'm so disappointed. Charles. Just like that. Even though the scenery on the road was very terrifying, Ray Minkai and the brave king still rushed to the Scarlet Giant's head unimpeded. The huge crack that emitted the terrifying light beam once again split open on the Scarlet Giant's faceless face, sending out one attack after another toward the brave king. Charles, since you're obsessed with God, then I'll let you have a taste of whether the things you're obsessed with can satisfy you. He raised it. In the midst of the Scarlet Giant's attack, the brave king, whose entire body was enveloped in golden radiance, raised his left hand and pulled out a cone-shaped object that was shining with 7-colored light from his right arm. Then he pointed at the Scarlet Giant's head and raised the hammer in his hand. Charles, this is the dream you're pursuing. Take a good look at it. Destroy. Heaven. Destroy. Earth. Hammer. A loud sound like that of a bell suddenly rang out. The cone-shaped object that had been ruthlessly smashed into the Scarlet Giant's head by the hammer of annihilation instantly pierced into the location of the fragment and firmly locked onto the fragment. Give me back what's mine. Charles, as Ray Minkai shouted, a metal hook popped out of his huge right forearm and tightly hooked onto the cone-shaped object that had locked onto the fragment. Then, the brave king pulled hard and took back the fragment that Charles had snatched. UFFI. Catch. Ray Minkai, who had taken back the fragment, didn't focus on the fragment. Instead, he threw the fragment in his hand in the air and threw it in the direction of Euphemia. The moment the shard left the brave king's surroundings, a red light immediately rose from Euphemia's position, locking onto the shard that was drawing an arc in the air. The red light quickly brought the shard to where Euphemia was. Finally, it obediently landed in Euphemia's palm, contrasting brilliantly with the scarlet golden lion head medallion. My power! The Scarlet Giant that had lost the fragment let out a roar. Countless black shadows immediately flew out from its body and rushed towards Euphemia's position. However, Ray Minkai wouldn't just watch these black shadows succeed. Charles, don't struggle anymore. Give it to me. Turn into light. Ray Minkai's gaze focused. The brave king raised the sledgehammer in his hand and smashed it down on the Scarlet Giant without hesitation. Boom! Another loud explosion rang out. Following that, there was a continuous series of low rumbling sounds. Amidst the rumbling sounds, Charles's voice rang out unwillingly. Despicable. Why can't I understand? Why do I still have to protect this ugly world? Ray Minkai, if you stop me, then what will you use to stop that person, the sinner who came from another world and took everything from Lucio? Ray Minkai smiled lightly and replied indifferently. In short, it's good that you're able to freeze this world in the eternal and unchanging past. Despicable, despicable, despicable. Charles shouted 3 times in a row and finally disappeared without a trace in the huge light pillar that soared into the sky. From now on, there might no longer be a man named Charles Di Britannia in C's world. It's over. Boom! As soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, a black shadow suddenly appeared. And before Ray Minkai could react, the right arm of the brave king, the hammer of Armageddon transformed from Golmark, was cut off. In his shock, Ray Minkai couldn't care less about who cut off the hammer of Armageddon and hurriedly retreated from the brave king's original position until he saw the true face of the attacker. You're really lucky, little UFFI's knight. Slender arms and legs, slender and solid steel body, flexible posture, and a logo that made people unable to look away. The only thing that made people feel uncomfortable was the disgusting bright red paint on the body that appeared in front of the brave king. That logo is Princess Mariana's exclusive logo. Euphemia immediately exclaimed when she saw the mysterious body's logo. Mariana? She didn't follow Charles and die under the hammer of Armageddon? Ray Minkai's face sank when he heard that. As the former Round Table Knight #1, what did Mariana represent? Ray Minkai naturally knew. One had to know that the current #1 Knight of the Round Table could only be promoted to the position of #1 because Mariana had voluntarily given up the position of #1. Therefore, Mariana, who should have died with Charles but suddenly appeared, was undoubtedly a big surprise. Princess Mariana, do you have any unfinished wishes? A light flashed, and the brave king's lost right arm was restored. Lei Minkai asked as he looked at the KMF that was almost an enlarged version of itself, not far away. Unfinished wishes? Speaking of which, I do have a few. But for now, what I have to do is to fulfill Charles's wish. As soon as Mariana's voice fell, the KMF body that was so red it made people want to vomit flashed and disappeared in front of the brave king. The next moment, the brave king suddenly raised his leg and kicked to the side. Boom! The force came, and the brave king took a few steps back. On the left side, which should have been empty, a red figure suddenly rolled out. After rolling a few times on the ground, it barely stopped moving. I underestimated you. UFFI's Knight. Chapter 247. Mariana. She was the princess of the Empire, but she was actually the strongest woman in the Empire. Mariana, you actually didn't disappear with Charles? The brave king clenched his fists, took a stance, and looked warily at the red mech that was slowly standing up. No, I almost disappeared with Carolou. It's just that Carolou left the last chance, the eternal one, to me. In the red KMF mech, Mariana, who had changed into a pilot suit, had a trace of fanaticism on her face. Eternal one? Heh, it's quite in line with your methods. Lei Minkai sneered. It's useless to say more. Lei Minkai, I'm not Carolou. I only have one way to deal with the enemy. That is to make the enemy disappear from this world before they are killed. Mariana shouted, and the large KMF mech Eternal One suddenly accelerated. She raised her hand and shot out a series of slender light beams. The moment these light beams left the Eternal One's arm, they twisted in the air, constantly changing trajectories. They launched a fierce attack in a chaotic but orderly attack formation. Although this attack looked very shocking, it was actually no different from the light beam attack from the Scarlet Giant. If there was a difference, it would be the difference in size between the two. Therefore, Lei Minkai and even the brave king were not afraid of this attack. Shield. The brave king raised his left hand and struck with his palm. A phantom ripple suddenly appeared and enveloped the brave king. The scene of history replayed itself once again. When the imposing beam attack came into contact with the ripple-like shield, it suddenly stopped, and under the guidance of some mysterious characteristic of the shield, it slowly moved on the surface of a shield. When all the light beams moved in unison, a hexagram of light appeared in front of the brave king. My move. Mariana. The brave king pushed with his left hand, and the hexagram formed by the Eternal One's light beam attack suddenly accelerated and rushed toward the Eternal One. It was so fast that even Mariana couldn't react. Boom! Just how powerful was an Eternal's beam attack? Perhaps Lei Minkai didn't know, but Mariana knew very well, especially when she personally experienced the attack that she had used and hit herself. Under the attack of the hexagram, the Eternal Sovereign's blood-red armor was blown to pieces and almost collapsed. However, this did not mean that the Eternal Sovereign would be defeated. Eternal Ones. This was the ideal that Charles and Mariana pursued. A world that never changes. Eternally unchanging humans. There was also the eternal royal power. Therefore, no matter what kind of attack they received, the Eternal Sovereign would instantly heal their injuries. Super regenerative ability. Looking at the Eternal Sovereign's rapidly recovering armor, Lei Minkai's eyes flashed with a cold light. State 0. This guy should not have received any reinforcements, right? The abilities of Eternal Sovereigns are indeed strange. In this world that had been cut off from sea, and now that they had lost the fragments, the Eternal One still had such a powerful recovery ability. Lei Minkai had no choice but to be cautious. Yes, it was probably a gamble. Kai, go all out. Okay. Seeing that the brave king did not take advantage of the Eternal Sovereign's recovery to pursue and attack, Mariana suddenly laughed out loud. What a surprise. A man from another world. Do you really think of yourself as a knight of the Britannia Empire? No. From the beginning, I was not a knight. Ray Minkai snorted coldly. The brave king then took a step forward, raised his right fist, and punched out. Seeing the brave king's posture, Mariana immediately remembered the move that destroyed the Black Sunderland. I will never let you succeed. Mariana's eyes flashed, and the Eternal Sovereign's figure flashed and disappeared in front of the brave king. Disappeared? As soon as the Eternal Sovereign disappeared, the broken phantom that was ready to attack suddenly lost its target, and Ray Minkai had to stop the attack and be on guard. Swish! 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 In the battle domain, other than the brave king, there was nothing else. No. There were also shadows that could not be seen clearly, flickering back and forth around the brave king. Without a doubt, this should be the Eternal Sovereign that disappeared earlier. It turned out that the Eternal Sovereign did not disappear in a thin air, but entered a state of high-speed movement. Chance! A cold light flashed in Mariana's eyes, and the Eternal Sovereign flashed and rushed behind the brave king. A cold light burst out from his arm, and he pierced the brave king's back with great precision. Bang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. However, the Eternal Sovereign jumped back a few meters and accelerated away from the brave king. You run really fast. The brave king turned around, revealing his right hand that was tightly holding the front end of the sleeve sword. It turned out that the sound of metal clashing just now was deliberately made by Ray Minkai. The goal was to confuse Mariana and make her think that her attack had worked. However, based on the current situation, Mariana did not fall for it. This vigilance was worthy of being the strongest person in the Britannia Empire. However, before finding the brave king's weakness, Mariana, who was determined to distance herself, was a troublesome existence. This was not the real world. It was still unknown how long the power of the splitting screwdriver could last. After all, the composition of this world was different from the world where the brave king came from. Therefore, in the end, Ray Minkai only had one choice. That was to end the battle quickly. It's not a big deal to run fast. After making up his mind, Ray Minkai's eyes flashed, and he made up his mind. The next moment, the brave king, who was in a defensive posture, suddenly stood up straight and spread his hands to the left and right. Instantly, the middle door was wide open, as if he had given up on defense. Lure the enemy? Or? The brave king's sudden action stunned Mariana, but she knew that this might be an opportunity. After weighing it over and over again, Mariana decided to test it out from a safe distance before making her next move. Buzz! Another beam of light. After closing in for a while, the Eternal Sovereign shot a beam of light at the brave king. In the blink of an eye, the beam of light brushed past the brave king and hit the ground behind the brave king, creating a medium-sized pit. Calm down. Mariana's expression changed slightly. She was almost certain that the brave king was luring the enemy. Currently, he was trying to bait her. However, after this result, would Mariana take the bait? The answer was yes. The defensive ability displayed by the brave king had already exceeded Mariana's imagination. Whether it was the phantom shield that could reflect attacks or the super regeneration ability that was not inferior to the Eternal Sovereign's, all of this proved that the brave king's strength was not as simple as she thought. Ray Minkai wanted to end the battle quickly. Wasn't Mariana the same? Mariana's target was not only Ray Minkai, but also the person from another world who had the same face and experience as her son, Lucio. Although this person from another world had called her mother before they met, she, who was in Sea World, knew that this person from another world was an enemy, Charles Shaluru's greatest enemy. Fight! Forced by the situation, Mariana finally made the decision to stake everything on one throw. The Eternal Sovereign paused and stopped not far in front of the brave king. Mariana thought that it was the safest distance. Then the Eternal Sovereign opened his hands, and two purple-red long swords suddenly popped out from his arms and landed in his palms. He held them tightly. She's coming. Kai! She's going all out. State Zero glanced at the magnificent and solemn palace, and said in a deep voice. Both Ray Minkai and State Zero sensed Mariana's fear. With the owner of the magnificent palace, they were not worried that Mariana would drag the battle into a war of attrition. Swoosh! The eternal sovereign disappeared. The next moment, two purple-red rays of light tore through the space in front of the brave king like the dawn breaking through the darkness, sending the sword blade that was sharp enough to cut through everything in the world to the brave king's eyes. It seemed that in the next second, the brave king would be pierced through by this unparalleled sharp sword blade. But Ray Minkai did not panic. On the contrary, his heart was beating rapidly, and the hot blood in his chest was boiling. Wind rise! Bang! Suddenly, Ray Minkai shouted, and time seemed to stop at this moment. That sword blade. The eternal sovereign, who had stabbed the unparalleled sharp sword blade towards the brave king, stopped. Mariana could only watch the last bit of distance between the sword blade and the brave king's hard armor, but she could not take another step. What's going on? Cloud movement! Ray Minkai shouted again. Bang! Mariana suddenly found that her heart, which had long been silent, had actually jumped. Mariana, who had been dead for many years and could only live in the world of sea, did not have the time to be happy that she could feel her heart beating again. She found that the eternal sovereign, the body that Charles had placed his last hope on, was actually swept into the air by a storm. She could not move at all. Everything in front of her was so familiar. When the brave king appeared, Mariana, who was hiding in the Scarlet Giant with Charles, saw it at a glance. Storm. It's this damn storm again. Mariana gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Just like before, the storm that even the Scarlet Giant could not break free from enveloped the eternal sovereign, suppressing it firmly, preventing it from exerting any strength. It also isolated the connection between Mariana and the eternal sovereign. Ray Minkai, under Mariana's horrified gaze, the brave king, who had his hands spread wide open, didn't reveal a large number of flaws as she had expected. On the contrary, this was the prelude to the brave king's strongest killing move. The storm had already swept everything. The eternal sovereign was swept up high and could not move. What was left was the time for the ultimate move to appear. Heaven and hell break. With Ray Minkai's shout, the brave king's left hand lit up with a ripple, and his right hand lit up with a flickering red vortex of light. Then, two hands with two completely different powers formed a claw and slowly gathered in front of the brave king's chest. At the same time, Ray Minkai was muttering a language that even he had never learned, but he knew the meaning. Close. Close. The moment the hands were completely closed and formed a fist, a powerful force suddenly burst out from it. It crossed the air at an extremely fast speed and hit the eternal sovereign squarely. Boom! At this moment, Mariana fell into darkness, and the eternal sovereign fell into a dead silence. The eternal sovereign, who had still had a trace of strength to struggle, had completely become a fish on the chopping block of the brave king. Mariana, you undead, stay silent in this endless darkness forever. The battle ushered in the final conclusion. Under the gaze of Euphemia and Shyamuna, the brave king, who had once again used his ultimate move, erupted with all his strength and dug out something buried deep in the eternal sovereign's body. The battle finally came to an end. Wait, Lionite. However, when Shyamuna saw the object in the brave monarch's hand, she immediately screamed, Princess Shyamuna, please let me see that thing. Shyamuna respectfully said to the brave king. After witnessing the entire battle, Shyamuna finally lowered her noble head. Ray Minkai did not suspect anything and opened the brave king's hands, allowing Shyamuna to size up the object dug out from the eternal sovereign's body. To be honest, Ray Minkai did not know that such a thing could be dug out from the eternal sovereign's body. If Shyamuna could recognize it, that would be the best. Otherwise, Ray Minkai only had one choice, and that was to crush it and destroy it completely. This is code. Unexpectedly, Shyamuna exclaimed in surprise after sizing him up. Code, isn't Charles already dead? Code should have disappeared from this world. Rei Minkai's question came from the brave king's body. No, perhaps Charles left Code to Mariana, and then Mariana's existence was destroyed by you, Lion Knight. So, Code finally appeared in this form. Shyamuna paused, and then shook her head. Of course, this is also my wishful thinking. Shyamuna's guess might be reasonable, but Rei Minkai also had a feeling that it might be true. However, such a situation was never mentioned in the original novel. Hence, Rei Minkai was in a dilemma for a moment. Kai, can you make me silently accept such a thing? Euphemia suddenly asked while she was in a dilemma. UFFI princess. Rei Minkai and Shyamuna looked at Euphemia in surprise. Euphemia frowned and said carefully, I seem to have heard a voice telling me to touch such a thing. Rei Minkai did not answer. Instead, he called out to State Zero in his mind. I can hear you. Kai, don't worry. Your Royal Highness is still holding our medals. She should be fine. After the battle, State Zero's voice became a little lazy. All right, UFFI, be careful. Rei Minkai thought for a while and controlled the brave king to move the object in his hand in front of Euphemia. Euphemia took a deep breath and raised her hand to touch the object in the brave king's hand. The moment her right hand touched the object, a blinding light exploded on the back of Euphemia's right hand. However, the light only lasted for a few breaths of time before it disappeared. At the same time, as it disappeared, the object lying in the brave king's hands also disappeared without a trace. The only thing that proved its existence was the V-shaped emblem on the back of Euphemia's right hand that looked like a bird spreading its wings. Code, Shyamuna, who recovered from the dizziness caused by the strong light, saw the emblem on the back of Euphemia's hand and shouted in surprise. Code, Rei Minkai was equally surprised. As the brave king's body gradually dissipated in the light, Rei Minkai, who was slowly landing on the ground, took a few steps forward and quickly came in front of Euphemia. He carefully looked at the emblem on the back of Euphemia's hand. That's right, it's Code. Chapter 248. A series of footsteps sounded in the quiet corridor, but in the next second, the footsteps stopped. The figure who had stopped in his tracks raised his head and cast his gaze towards the outside of the magnificent and dignified palace that he was in, yet he was incomparably familiar with. Has it calmed down? In the end, perhaps the night one. Charles, the 98th Emperor of the Britannia Empire. I'm afraid he has already left. In the great battle just now, even if he was in the depths of the palace, he could still see the scene of the battle between the Scarlet Giant Gouda and the never-before-seen mech. Although the battle between them was terrifying, after discovering that it would not affect the palace, the figure stopped watching and continued to walk into the depths of the palace. The battle is over. Unfortunately, His Majesty the Emperor was not defeated by me. Retracting his gaze, the figure standing in the corridor turned around and came to a huge door. Raising his head covered by the mask, the figure stared at the gorgeous but familiar door in front of him for a long time. It was so familiar that in his life, it had the significance of changing his fate. Do you remember that when he was 9 years old, his mother died, and his sister was crippled to the point of having both feet and eyes? Under such circumstances, he pushed open the door in front of him with his young body and tender age. In front of many nobles with mocking and funny faces, he fearlessly raised questions and requests to his father, the 98th Emperor of the Britannia Empire, Charles di Britannia. As a result, after that, Lu Lucio and his sister not only lost the status of prince and princess, but also became hostages under Charles's order and were sent to other countries. At this point, the fate of him, Lu Lucio v. Britannia, changed. I'm back here again. Under the mask, Lu Lucio's gaze changed. In the end, he raised his hand and pushed open the door in front of him like he did in the past. Ka, rumble. With the rumbling sound of the door being pushed open, the audience hall that still clearly existed in his memory gradually appeared in front of him. Different from a scene in his memory, the nobles who stood in this audience hall back then disappeared. Similarly, the figure with a burly figure, like a small mountain, that brought great pressure to Lu Lucio also disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by another figure that made Lu Lucio even more fearful and even have indescribable emotions. Emperor. Under the mask, Lu Lucio's dull voice sounded. That's right. The figure sitting on the throne was the 99th emperor of the Britannia Empire who seized Lu Lucio's Geas ability. He was a young man named Leluxiu from another world that Charles had mentioned. You're here? Sure enough, you're here. Lu Lucio. The young man in a white emperor's robe slowly stood up from the throne, looked at the young man wearing a mask and a black cloak below, and smiled softly. Looking at your appearance, you seem to be very surprised. Lu Lucio did not take off his mask, even if he had already been pointed out by the emperor. No, I'm not surprised. In fact, whether it's you or Charles, I won't be surprised if you come here, because from the beginning, I've been prepared for you and your arrival. The smile on the emperor's mouth became wider and wider. Then he raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Pa! A beam of light was projected from above to the emperor's right. In the next moment, the figure that appeared under the light made Lu Lucio's eyes widen. His hands were tied. His feet were suspended in the air. The woman who liked to mock him intentionally or unintentionally in the past, the woman who he had always called a witch at this moment, had become a prisoner at the mercy of others. Hee, what a touching reunion. The emperor turned around and walked to the woman who was suspended in midair, looking down at Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio, do you know? I'm very jealous of you. Jealous? Seeing the witch's miserable state, Lu Lucio, who had to remain calm even though he was burning with anxiety, frowned and subconsciously began to analyze the emperor's words. Hee, that's right. I'm not only jealous of you, I'm even more jealous of Lu Lucio, the Lu Lucio of every parallel world. Do you know? No matter which world it is. The emperor's voice was slightly lower as he looked coldly at the silent witch who was suspended in midair. She has always existed as Lu Lucio V, Britannia's most loyal ally. Even if Lu Lucio V, Britannia was reduced to a vagrant and became worse than a dog, the witch still did not abandon him. With that, the emperor smiled. Hee, Lu Lucio, do you think I don't know that C has been secretly looking for a way to contact you? If I hadn't deliberately let down my guard, I'm afraid you wouldn't have known that you came to this world, C's world. You were the one who lured me here. Lu Lucio was shocked. Bang! Clang! After a gunshot, half of Lu Lucio's mask was smashed into pieces. A trace of red slid down from his forehead and flowed through Lu Lucio's right eye. At the same time, the witch C, who was suspended in midair, was awakened by the gunshot. As soon as she woke up, she saw Lu Lucio's shattered mask and the ghastly wound on his face. Lu Lucio, be careful. Ugh. Before CC could finish what she wanted to say, her mouth was suddenly covered by a force, and she couldn't say another word. Don't spoil the scene. Witch. The emperor's eyes lit up with a red light, and the silhouettes of two birds that wanted to spread their wings and soar also lit up in the depths of his pupils. CC, don't waste your energy. Although I can't make you shut your mouth completely, I can still make you unable to speak. You just obediently watch for me. Emperor. Suddenly, a black shadow streaked across the sky and flew toward the emperor like a bolt of lightning. But the emperor gently tilted his head and dodged the black shadow. Are you finally willing to take off that ridiculous mask? The emperor sneered and looked down. It turned out that the black shadow, just now, was the mask that was shattered by the bullet. Lu Lucio threw it out when the emperor wasn't paying attention. It just didn't have any use. As you like. This mask represents my determination. Emperor. Lu Lucio raised his hand and wiped the redness from his eyes. His eyes also lit up with the same red light as the emperor. Oh, has your Geas recovered? No wonder you have the confidence to stand in front of me. I'm afraid this is also the help that CC gave you, right? Hee hee. The Emperor laughed a few times and suddenly widened his eyes, looking straight into Lu Lucio's eyes. Come on, let me see your determination. Lu Lucio. Suddenly, the red light exploded. The pair of birds in the eyes of both sides spread their wings and flew towards each other at the same time. Night. Ashford Academy. Lu Lucio finally returned home after a day of school. In fact, it was to deal with the sudden whims of the student council president, Millet. Welcome back, brother. As usual, the ones who welcomed Lu Lucio home were his sister, Lilina, and the servant, Prince Feng. Welcome back, young Master Lu Lucio. Do you want to eat first, or? Prince Feng stood behind Lilina and pushed the wheelchair for her as he asked Lu Lucio respectfully. Lu Lucio nodded and adjusted his collar. He heaved a sigh of relief and said, Yes. Let's start eating. I believe Lilina is hungry too. Sorry, brother came back late. Lilina, who was sitting in the wheelchair, raised her head slightly and shook her head in Lu Lucio's direction. No, Lilina is not hungry. It's just that brother is probably tired from dealing with the president's mission, right? Why don't we wait for brother to take a shower first before we eat? Seeing that his sister was so sensible, Lu Lucio's heart softened. No, let's eat first. Lilina, brother doesn't feel very tired yet. Really? Yes. Yes. In the end, Lilina nodded in agreement with Lu Lucio's decision. Thus, under the service of Prince Feng, the two siblings began a warm dinner. However, before they could move their knives a few times, the door was suddenly knocked open. Lu Lucio, Lilina, run. The person who knocked open the door was the president of the student council, Millet. He saw that the school uniform worn by the girl, who was usually full of strange ideas, had been dyed in large patches of bright red. Her pretty face was stained with a mixture of dust and red. President, Lu Lucio was shocked. He immediately stood up and looked at Millet in shock. President, could it be? Millet nodded and shouted urgently. Yes. Quick, leave this place immediately. Otherwise, who are you people? Duh. Prince Feng's exclamation was interrupted by a series of gunshots. Hearing the gunshots, Millet's expression immediately became panicked. Quick, Lu Lucio, carry Lilina and run through the window. Duh. As soon as Millet finished speaking, she was followed by Prince Feng's escape route. At the same time she fell to the ground, a group of soldiers wearing unidentified uniforms rushed into the room. Lu Lucio Lamperugi. Lilina Lamperugi. Target confirmed. The man in the lead looked at Lu Lucio, who was shielding Lilina behind him, nodded, and raised his right hand. Charles. In the next second, under Lu Lucio's roar, gunshots rang out. Countless bullets drowned Lu Lucio and Lilina in an instant. As he fell, Lu Lucio looked at Lilina and stopped breathing. When his lungs started to breathe again, Lu Lucio jumped up from the bed. This is my room? Lu Lucio looked at his hands and couldn't help but be lost in thought. He should have died under the gunfire just now. Why was he still alive? While he was surprised, someone knocked on the door. Young Master Lu Lucio, you have a letter. It was Prince Feng's voice. Prince Feng? Didn't she die too? In confusion, Lu Lucio opened the door and took the letter from Prince Feng, who should have died but was still alive. Prince Feng, what is Lilina doing now? After taking the letter, Lu Lucio asked casually. Yes, Miss Lilina is folding paper cranes in the living room. Prince Feng respectfully told Lu Lucio the information he wanted to know. Is that so? Then, let Lilina do her best to fold paper cranes. I may have to go out later. Lu Lucio glanced at the letter in his hand and ordered casually. Yes, young Master Lu Lucio. Half an hour later, Lu Lucio rushed out of Ashford Academy. He came to the amusement park with a dignified expression. Xiaoli, are you here? Half an hour ago, Lu Lucio opened the letter and found that the person who wrote it was Xiaoli. In addition, the letter mentioned the secret that Lu Lucio was zero. Shocked, Lu Lucio had to follow the letter and come to the amusement park alone to see Xiaoli, who claimed to know his secret. Lu Lucio, you're here. Sure enough, when Lu Lucio came to the carousel, Xia Li's figure also appeared. There were still traces of tears on the delicate girl's face, but it could be seen that the girl was happy to see Lu Lucio. Xia Li, you? Lu Lucio was stunned and subconsciously moved his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. No, it's okay. Lu Lucio, I'm just a little excited. Xia Li shook her head slightly, then took a few steps forward and buried her head in Lu Lucio's embrace, and asked softly, Hey, Lu Lucio, are you really Zero? Lu Lucio's expression stiffened, and when he was about to say something, a strange memory suddenly surged out from the depths of his mind. It was a mountain flood. It was a mountain flood that was terrifying, and in an instant, it buried the city at the foot of the mountain. Sherry's father just so happened to be among the people buried under the mountain torrent. The moment this memory appeared, Lu Lucio seemed to have sorted out the situation in front of him. However, in Xia Li's eyes, his silent appearance was already a tacit agreement. Suddenly, a sharp pain attacked Lu Lucio's abdomen, shattering Lu Lucio's thoughts and consciousness. Xia Li. Before his consciousness faded, the last thing Lu Lucio saw was a tear-filled Xia Li following him to the Yellow Springs in despair. No, Xia Li. It was another transition between darkness and light. But this time, Lu Lucio didn't have to go through those strange experiences and return to the audience hall. Oh, you woken up? Lu Lucio, how do you feel after seeing all of Lu Lucio's life experiences? The corners of the Emperor's mouth curled up slightly, and he looked at Lu Lucio, who was still in a daze, and said, All of Lu Lucio's? Yes. What you saw just now were the memories of Lu Lucio from another world. Among them, some were secretly disposed of by the Empire before they could take revenge. Some died in accidents. Some were discovered and died in the hands of a girl who loved Lu Lucio. Finally, the Emperor's gaze fell on the witch. More likely, they were killed by their most trusted ally, their lifelong accomplice. Don't you think so? Cece, you, person from another world. Shut up. I'm not the Cece, you know. Suddenly, the witch gathered her strength and loudly refuted the Emperor's words. Is that so? Whether you are or not, it's not up to me, it's up to him. Lu Lucio Lamperugi, open your eyes and see the true face of this witch. The red light reappeared. Lu Lucio's vision went black. When a light returned, he found that he had returned to the beginning of fate during the attack. And at his feet, there was a girl who was hit, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. I'm sorry. Although you're a student of Ashford Academy, you saw something you shouldn't have. So please go to hell. In front of him was the officer of the Britannia Empire and the soldiers he led. Back here again. Lu Lucio frowned slightly, but he raised his hand without hesitation and ordered with an absolute tone. In the name of Lu Lucio V. Britannia, go to hell. Chapter 249. CC. Since you're awake, get up. Standing among the corpses, Lu Lucio looked down and coldly looked at the girl who had been on the ground since the beginning. He knew that although the girl took a bullet for him, she was not the C he was familiar with. From the moment he realized that he had returned to the beginning of fate, he had already figured everything out. This happened in front of him. This reappeared in front of him. It wasn't a memory that he was familiar with or had experienced. Instead, it came from the experiences of that emperor and even the other youths who shared the name Lu Lucio with him. Do I have to die again? This thought flashed through Lu Lucio's mind in an instant. To be honest, in the previous somewhat bizarre experience, even if Lu Lucio did not specifically record it, he already felt that he should have died dozens of times or even hundreds of times. The familiar world in front of him might also want him to die once again. This is really surprising. Lu Lucio, how do you know I'm not dead yet? While Lu Lucio was thinking, the girl who was supposed to be dead slowly stood up. After glancing around, she looked at the young man meaningfully. We'll talk about this later. Now we have other things to do. In addition to Lu Lucio's voice, there was also the sound of the KMF rushing over. It's starting. When the Sunderland broke through the wall and appeared in front of him, Lucio's eyes flashed with a cold light. Come on, Emperor, let me see what you're up to. In the audience hall, the Emperor leaned back comfortably on the throne with a playful smile on his face. Ha! It seems that Lucio is quite motivated. While speaking, the pair of eyes that activated the power of Geas also looked at the witch who was still hanging in the air. What do you want? If you want C's world, take it. I'm tired of this world anyway. The green-haired girl's eyes flashed with despair. Tired? Oof. That was right. You really are tired of the world. However, you still have a glimmer of hope for him. Come to think of it, it's funny. See, your despair began to crumble after you met Lucius Lamparino. The Emperor snapped his fingers and had the witch stand on solid ground again. He then let go of her hands and said lightly, "Don't worry. Go, if you want him to die faster." CC. His eyelids twitched a few times, but he finally held it in. All of this was within the Emperor's expectations. Just as he said, in a distant time and space, CC once had the same tacit understanding with him, but at a certain moment, everything changed. Whoosh! The sound of water rang in his ears. It was a rare rainstorm in this season. Lucio, who had originally decided to go out, had no choice but to cancel his trip and stay at home with his sister Lilina. Of course, in addition to the siblings and Prince Phone, there was also a young girl, CC, who had lived in this house for some time. What? Are you annoyed because you can't go out? After lunch, Lucio, who had returned to his room, frowned at CC's light words. Don't provoke me at this time. CC, reaching out to pull open the curtains, Lucio's frown deepened. No matter how the world changed, at least the weather changes that he was familiar with were traceable. However, under such circumstances, what was supposed to be a sunny day suddenly turned into a rainstorm. This made Lucio's heart faintly irritated. Perhaps this was the moment when change was about to come. How rare. Such an arrogant and conceited brat, yet he still has moments of irritation. Perhaps it was because CC, who had been stopped by Lucio once, still let out a light mockery. Black Shadow slammed CC onto the bed. It was a doll. It was the doll that CC had been collecting pizza coupons during this period of time and finally exchanged for it. CC, who had been smashed on the bed, turned over, hugged the large doll, and leaned against the back of the bed. What did you notice? Lucio's frown deepened, but he didn't have the slightest idea. The only thing he knew was that the betrayal mentioned by the Emperor was about to happen. Other than that, Lucio knew nothing about CC. This betrayal, whether it was the motive or the means. CC, what? Did you think of something? Lucio's call made CC, who was holding the doll, straighten his back and look like he was listening attentively. No, nothing. I'm going out for a while. Lucio's mouth moved, but he gave up the idea of asking CC directly. In this weather? CC looked out the window. It's fine. As the door closed, Lucio's figure disappeared in front of CC. Sighs. However, behind the door, Lucio was lying in a pool of blood. You? Why? Lucio looked at the rapidly expanding red mark on his chest in surprise. He looked in disbelief at the thin and small figure in the wheelchair, as well as the woman standing behind him with a smoking gun in her hand. And they were his sister, Lilina, and Prince Phone. At this moment, that familiar little face was only cold. Devil, get my brother back to me. Devil. Although his clothes were dyed red, Lucio didn't feel the slightest pain, because he knew that everything in front of him was just a replay of history based on the Emperor's memories. Click. Behind him, the sound of the door being opened sounded. CC, will my brother come back? As soon as she heard the sound of the door opening, Lilina asked urgently. Yes, he will. Lilina. C. Glanced at Lucio, who was lying at the foot of the wall, then looked at Lilina and nodded slightly. CC, you. At this moment, Lucio finally understood. Why did the Emperor say that CC was a traitor? It turned out that in his world, CC had deceived Lilina in the name of Lu Lucio being a devil, thus making Lilina think that the real Lu Lucio was a devil. But how could Lilina believe CC's lies? Bang! Without giving Lu Lucio any room to probe or think, Prince Feng, who was standing behind Lilina, fired the last bullet and sent Lu Lucio into the darkness. Do you understand? In the darkness, the Emperor's voice slowly sounded. Why did CC do this? Lu Lucio was silent for a while, but in the end, he still couldn't figure out the key point. Everything seemed so contradictory. As an ally, as an accomplice, there was no need for CC to betray him. Why? Speaking of which, that's true. Lu Lucio, perhaps you still don't know the truth of this world, and you still don't know the true face of that woman named Mariana V. Britannia. The Emperor's figure slowly appeared from the darkness. Mariana? Mother? Yes. In the darkness, a ray of light flashed. Then, a laboratory full of scientific research equipment and even several large culture tanks appeared in front of Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio's mouth moved, but he didn't make any sound. This was because he saw Lilina, accompanied by CC and Prince Xiezi, enter the research room from the side through the door. C, will brother be here? Lilina, who didn't know that she had come to this unfamiliar laboratory, asked C softly. Yes, as long as Lilina sleeps, she will be able to see Lu Lucio. Under CC's persuasion, Lilina finally entered the culture tank with the help of Prince Feng. Then, a familiar figure, surrounded by many researchers in white coats, walked into the laboratory. CC, are you ready? Mariana, I'm ready. C looked at the figure surrounded by people and nodded slightly. Very good. This way, our Akasha will have an absolute guarantee. As Mariana smiled, the scene suddenly changed. The blood-red sun hung high in the sky. The earth was burning with endless black flames. On the shattered earth, there were patches of woods that could still be vaguely seen as human shapes. On the blurry faces, there were wails, pain, begging for mercy, and even the despair of death. And in the middle of this forest, a scarlet stone pillar that shot straight into the sky appeared in front of Lu Lucio's eyes. That's a scarlet giant? This scarlet stone pillar gave Lu Lucio a strong sense of familiarity, as if he had seen it appear not long ago. On second thought, Lu Lucio immediately remembered the battle that just ended. Sword of Akasha, look at the top. The Emperor's voice became colder. Lu Lucio looked up. At the top of the scarlet pillar, known as the Sword of Akasha, a small figure appeared there. Lilina. When he saw the small voice, Lu Lucio exclaimed in disbelief. Her body was covered in zigzagging red light. Except for her head and heart, the rest of her body was integrated into the scarlet pillar. Charles, in order to make this world exist in this moment forever, Mariana didn't hesitate to merge Lilina and Sword of Akasha and kill the god of this world. The Emperor briefly explained the reason for the scene in front of him. Kill the god? This is the reason for CC's betrayal? Yes. C has lived for too long. She wants to die. The Emperor retracted his gaze from Sword of Akasha and looked at Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio, my purpose is to save Lilina. Please lend me a hand. Perhaps now is the time for the Emperor to reveal his true intentions. For a long time, Lu Lucio had many speculations about the Emperor's purpose. But what he never thought was that the Emperor's purpose was beyond Lu Lucio's expectations. It was reasonable. If Lu Lucio was in the Emperor's position, he would probably make the same choice. But Lu Lucio raised his gaze and stared at the face in front of him that was exactly the same as his. In order to save Lilina, you didn't hesitate to get rid of Lu Lucio Lamperugi from other worlds? Those memories are probably those of Lu Lucio, right? Facing Lu Lucio's question, the Emperor nodded. Yes, I need their strength, and I also need your strength. In order to save Lilina, and also to save our sister, whether it is Lu Lucio Lamperugi or Lu Lucio V. Britannia, I need them all. For this, you will do whatever it takes. Lu Lucio coldly asked the young man in front of him. Yes, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Ha 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 ha. Looking at the determined emperor who was willing to sacrifice everything, Lu Lucio suddenly took a few steps back and laughed loudly. Whatever it takes. What a joke. Lu Lucio. If you're really Lu Lucio Lamperugi, then you should know Lilina's wish. You should also know the selfishness of Charles and Mariana. Lu Lucio's laughter gradually stopped. He raised his finger and pointed at the emperor with a mocking smile. I didn't expect that you would become the new Charles. Shut up. The emperor's eyes were red, and Gaius was about to be activated. Ha! Are you angered? Lu Lucio of Britannia. Say it. How many Lu Lucio have you gotten rid of? How many Lilina have you made cry on her brother's corpse? Say it. Lu Lucio shouted and questioned the emperor. The emperor's face changed dramatically. This is all to save Lilina. I will compensate them after successfully rescuing Lilina. Compensate? They are all dead. How are you going to compensate them? Do you think you are the savior? Lu Lucio seemed to be gradually taking the initiative. Yes, I am the savior. However, what Lu Lucio didn't expect was that the emperor's changing face suddenly calmed down. Ha ha! Are you crazy? Savior, are you kidding me? No, I'm serious. Lu Lucio, you should have felt the change, whether it's the physical or mental changes. Under the emperor's reminder, Lu Lucio was silent. Whether Lu Lucio admitted it or not, his body and his mind had indeed changed. He, who used to be a physically useless person, could inadvertently run 100 meters. With a light jump, he could jump from the ground to Gawain's body and other incredible feats. Lu Lucio didn't even dare to think about these actions before. This is this is our power. The emperor slowly clenched his right fist and said slowly, the universe is multifaceted. In the multifaceted universes, there are all kinds of me, and after these me die, the power they accumulate will be distributed to the me in other universes. It's just that because of the existence of many me, these powers are not obvious. So you got rid of me? Hearing this, even if he didn't quite understand, Lu Lucio understood some of the key information. Yes, as long as all of me's power is gathered on me, then I will definitely become the savior and obtain the power to save Nunnally. The emperor looked at Lu Lucio with a burning gaze. Madman, there are no gods in this world. Lu Lucio's gaze was very cold. Ha! Then, how do you explain the world you're in now? The emperor sneered and looked at Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio. Now, in this multifaceted universe, we are only one step away from saving Nunnally. So what? Even if we save Nunnally, do you think that after knowing the truth, will Nunnally be happy? At the cost of sacrificing Lu Lucio and Nunnally of the multifaceted universe. Lu Lucio's lack of tact and his repeated refutation of his actions had already made the emperor, who was about to achieve his wish, furious. Shut up. I said it. I'll make it up to them. Lu Lucio still sneered, and the ridicule in his words didn't change at all. Make it up. You're just like Charles, a human who wants to become a god. Emperor Lu Lucio. Chapter 250. Bang! A gunshot broke the deadlock in front of him. Lu Lucio, CC, who stood helplessly by the side, exclaimed, No, I'm fine. Lu Lucio calmly looked at the emperor on the throne who was shooting with a gun. What? Are you flustered and exasperated? Whatever you like. The emperor snorted coldly, but there was not much shame in his expression. Speaking of which, until now, all the Lu Lucio in the multiverse were left with him and Lu Lucio, but the emperor's wisdom was beyond Lu Lucio's estimation. The path forward was hell. As long as the emperor continued to move forward with his savior plan, he would inevitably see Lilina's sad and desperate expression. Under this torture, Lu Lucio could not imagine how the emperor persevered. However, this did not mean that Lu Lucio would understand and accept the emperor's approach, nor did it mean that he would willingly become the Emperor's sacrifice on this path. So, I still have to do it myself? Lu Lucio. The dark muzzle moved up and locked onto Lu Lucio's forehead, and the Emperor's expression became colder and colder. At this moment, Lu Lucio laughed. Ha ha ha. If you can do it, then shoot. Emperor. Lu Lucio's eyes flashed, and a confident smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, as if he had grasped something crucial. The Emperor suddenly fell silent. He knew that Lu Lucio had indeed discovered something crucial. Emperor, you can't shoot at me. Lu Lucio shouted loudly. In this sea world, you can't shoot at me. The Emperor frowned, then let go of his hand, and let the gun in his hand fall to the ground, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared. Indeed, I can't shoot at you, as expected of me. No, I'm not you and you're not me. The Emperor. Although we have the name Lu Lucio, in the end, we are not the same person. No, we are one and the same, because we would do anything for Nunnally, even if it means destroying the world. The Emperor waved his hand and denied Lu Lucio's words. However, these words angered Lu Lucio. That's right. For Nunnally, I can destroy the world. However, Nunnally's wish, Nunnally's world, was not like this. The Emperor. Perhaps you had good intentions at the beginning, but after experiencing so much Lu Lucio, you have changed. Lu Lucio's tone became sharper and sharper. On the long road, you became selfish. You believed that all Lu Lucio would sacrifice themselves for your great plan, and you believed that Lina would approve of your approach in the end. However, you don't know what kind of expression Nunnally will have when she wakes up and faces the world that you destroyed in the name of saving. Joy, moved, or pain? Under Lu Lucio's pressure, the Emperor suddenly flew into a rage. Shut up. Boom. A figure suddenly flashed behind Lu Lucio, and a pair of iron fists fiercely smashed towards Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio, be careful. CC was about to struggle and rush over, but a rope flew out from the darkness and tied up his hands and feet. Quiet. Which, now is not the time for you to appear and act. The Emperor glanced coldly at CC, then looked at Lu Lucio, who was being beaten up by the iron fists. Hey, are you angry from embarrassment? Lu Lucio was not injured. Although the attack of the pair of iron fists was so unexpected, when it smashed onto Lu Lucio's body, it was blocked by a screen. Under the iron fists, Lu Lucio slowly straightened his back. We are fledglings, and the world is our shell. Emperor, now I understand the meaning of this sentence. The Emperor's eyes twitched, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. But he still said with a calm expression, So what? This is just a phenomenon caused when all the power of Lu Lucio converged on you and me. Do you think you can defeat me with this level of understanding? Hey, of course not. But I see the hope of defeating you. Lu Lucio chuckled and shouted, The world is our shell. The screen that blocked the iron fists suddenly lit up, and in the blink of an eye, scattered the dark figure waving the iron fists, making him completely disappear from this world. The collapse of the iron fists caused a trace of shock to appear on the Emperor's calm face, but this trace of shock quickly calmed down. But there was a trace of graveness in the depths of the Emperor's eyes. This, a what? Lu Lucio, even if you discover the existence of this power, you still can't be my enemy. While speaking, the Emperor raised his right hand and shouted loudly, We are fledglings, and the world is our shell. The world is our shell. Rumble. In the midst of the Emperor's shout, the entire audience hall was suddenly shrouded in a violent tremor. The high and mighty Emperor took the Emperor and CC to a higher altitude, while the position where Lu Lucio stood was lowered to a lower position. The Emperor's throne. The position where Lu Lucio stood was linked by countless stairs, and on both sides of the stairs, there were black figures holding long swords. The long swords were raised high, as long as someone rushed up the stairs, they would be cut by these sharp swords. What a big lineup. Emperor. Lu Lucio looked at the Emperor who had risen high in the sky and was almost unable to see clearly, and revealed a mocking smile. I didn't know that there would be a time when I was so afraid of death. Afraid of death? Don't joke around. Lucio. Now, either you rush up, or you watch this world collapse and become a pile of withered bones. Rumble. Thunder came from the sky. An ominous aura rapidly rose from the depths of C's world at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if it was going to swallow C's world in a short period of time. Bang! At this moment, Ray Minkai and the others arrived. Zero. Lucio, you took off your mask? When Ray Minkai called out Zero's name, he saw Lucio's bloodstained face. Guy, UFFI, and Princess Shyamna, you're here. Lucio took off his black cloak and nodded to Ray Minkai and the others. The actors are all here. Then the show should start. Before Ray Minkai and the others could exchange information with Lucio, the Emperor's voice came from the high throne. Then, the magnificent palace collapsed, revealing the sky that reflected the scenery of another world. However, the world reflected in the sky shocked Shyamna to no end. That's Kirkstan, our kingdom. How could this be? Endless flames of war. Civilians screaming in pain. Unknown black bodies wreaking havoc everywhere. There were also soldiers who had been guarding the capital's last line of defense. KMF bodies. Among them, Shyamna saw her brother, her subordinates. Ray Minkai and Euphemia also saw the Zero troops led by Cornelia, Veretta, and Layla. Of course, there was also Zero, the Black Knight squad, led by Lucio. These people were guarding the last line of defense, fighting side by side against the attacks of those unknown black bodies. How does it feel to see your home being burned by flames? Princess Shyamna. The Emperor's voice came from the throne. Emperor Lucio, people from another world, why are you attacking my country? Shyamna asked sternly. Why? Because you're an obstacle. That's all. The Emperor smiled coldly. The scene in the sky suddenly changed. This time, what appeared in the scene was Europa and the imperial capital, Pandoragon. They also suffered the same fate as the Kirkstan kingdom. However, the enemy was even more powerful. The Abyss. Looking at the strange bodies wreaking havoc in the city, Ray Minkai's eyes showed a trace of seriousness. The speculation he had been making all along had come true. The Emperor was indeed connected to the Abyss. The current situation was probably a trap designed by the Emperor to prevent Ray Minkai and Euphemia from hindering the advancement of the Abyss in reality. Princess Shyamna, is there a way to leave this world now? Euphemia, who was standing next to Shyamna, asked in a low voice. Unexpectedly, the Emperor saw through it. UFFI, I advise you not to do too many useless things. Since I've already lured you in, there's no need to leave any loopholes and let you freely enter and exit this sea world. No. As soon as the Emperor finished speaking, Lucio loudly denied the Emperor's words. There are loopholes. That's you. Emperor. Oh? Is that so? If that's the case, go ahead and charge. Under the throne, in front of the stairs, Lucio faced the sharp swords shining with cold light and rushed up the stairs without hesitation. Ka! The moment Lucio stepped on the stairs, the sharp swords shrouding the stairs were instantly activated and slashed down at Lucio. Boom! 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 Lucio's speed was very fast, so fast that the sharp swords that were chopping downwards could not catch his figure at all. Perhaps this was the change brought about by the power of all Lucio. The former physically useless person, under the power of the multiverse, erupted with amazing power and reached the limit that Lucio had never imagined. Be careful. Suddenly, a cold light appeared in front of Lucio without warning and slashed toward Lucio. Just as Lucio was about to be cut in half at the waist, a white flash suddenly rushed out from behind Lucio. With a raise of its hand, the cold light that was about to cut Lucio in half was cut in half. Lancelot. Lucio, who had not stopped moving, looked at Lancelot, who was blocking his path in astonishment. Come up, Lucio. Lancelot opened his left hand toward Lu Lucio. Lu Lucio jumped without thinking and landed on Lancelot's left hand. Sit tight. Under Raymond-Kai's reminder, Lancelot moved again. This time, it was not like Lu Lucio rushing up the stairs alone. Lancelot's movement was far more than that. Even though Lancelot temporarily had to protect Lu Lucio in his left hand, he still couldn't hide the sharp cold light from the radiation vibrating sword in his right hand. Break! 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 No matter how many sharp swords there were in front of Lancelot, the radiation vibrating sword in his hand cut them in the blink of an eye. In less than a few minutes, Lancelot had already brought Lu Lucio to the top of the stairs that were halfway to the throne. Kai, faster. I'm fine. This body is enough to withstand Lancelot's power. In the fierce wind caused by Lancelot, Lu Lucio shouted for Raymond-Kai to speed up. Raymond-Kai frowned, glanced at the sky that reflected the end of the world, and nodded silently. State Zero. Coming. The White Cat State Zero's figure flashed, and the energy circuit inside Lancelot's body suddenly bloomed with a red light. In the blink of an eye, Lancelot's power doubled. Lu Lucio, who was in Lancelot's left hand, immediately felt like he was hit in the chest by a hammer and almost couldn't breathe. But Lu Lucio didn't pursue this issue, because the scene in front of him had almost turned into a blur. Lancelot exploded. One ignorant struggle. The Emperor glanced at Lancelot, who was sweeping across the stairs and almost in front of him, and waved his right hand with a murderous aura. Immediately, a cold steel figure appeared behind him. In the next second, a rhombus shape appeared in front of the steel figure. Go to hell, Lu Lucio. Boom! As soon as the Emperor gave the order, dozens of light beams suddenly erupted from the front of the rhombus, shrouding Lancelot below with the momentum of covering the sky and the sun. Mirage, what a surprise. However, this seemingly amazing attack didn't let Lancelot down the stairs. Instead, Raymond-Kai's voice came from the light beams that covered the sky and the sun. I didn't expect to see the body that has never appeared in this world. This world is really interesting. With a flash of light, Lancelot, who was holding up the radiation shield with both hands, rose to the sky and scathed from the attack of the mirage. Radiation shield. Lancelot, even without Suzaku, you still want to be my obstacle? As soon as the mirage raised its head, another round of crazy light beam attacks came. However, with Lancelot fully deployed the radiation shield, these light beam attacks didn't seem to have much effect. Lu Lucio. Opportunity. Withstanding the attack of the mirage, the moment Lancelot stepped on the platform where the throne was located, Lu Lucio's figure jumped up from Lancelot's cockpit and quickly rushed to the Emperor. Emperor Lu Lucio. With a flash of light, a sharp sword appeared in Lu Lucio's hand. TSK. Lu Lucio. The Emperor reached for the throne, and a gun appeared in his hand. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets whizzed out and constantly flew toward Lu Lucio. Clothes, hair, even hands, his face was pierced and wounded by the whistling bullets. But this didn't stop Lu Lucio's advance at all. We are fledglings, the world is our shell. Looking at Lu Lucio getting closer and closer, the Emperor once again shouted this unknown slogan. Boom, boom. In the midst of the slogan, the ground either collapsed or stone pillars suddenly rose, constantly blocking Lu Lucio's advance. Boom. Lu Lucio, who was careless for a moment, was sent flying by a stone pillar that rose from his feet and slammed heavily into a stone pillar not far away. However, when Lu Lucio was in extreme pain, some sentences suddenly appeared in his mind. If we don't destroy the shell of the world, we fledglings will surely die. Lu Lucio's subconscious chant caused the Emperor to feel extremely uneasy. Mirage. As soon as it heard the Emperor's call, the mirage that Lancelot was fighting suddenly disintegrated into countless parts and rushed to the Emperor and recondensed into the appearance of the mirage in front of the Emperor. Lu Lucio. This is my awareness. To destroy the shell of the world. To rebirth the world. Mirage, kill him. However, the mirage was one step too slow. In the instant that it disintegrated and returned to the Emperor, Lu Lucio's figure rushed across the distance of less than 10 meters and arrived in front of the emperor. For Nunnally, grant me the power to revolutionize the world. The sword in Lu Lucio's hand pierced through the emperor, bringing him pain that he had not felt for a long time. Ugh! Puffed. Bright red rapidly spread from the corners of his mouth, and the emperor looked down in disbelief at the sword that had pierced through him. Have you lost? Lu Lucio, you have won. The emperor did not retaliate before his death. Instead, as the mirage faded away, he raised his right hand and wiped his blood on Lu Lucio's face. Remember, Lu Lucio. From now on, you're the only one left in the multiverse. The one and only Lu Lucio v. Britannia. Our long-cherished wishes, our sins, and our hatred will all be the curse you have to bear. Lu Lucio nodded his head and responded faintly. Yes. In the end, Lu Lucio can only die in Lu Lucio's hands. That's not a bad ending. The Emperor's pupils began to fade. We are fledglings, and the world is the shell. If the shell of the world is not destroyed, we fledglings will die. Destroy the shell of the world. Lu Lucio v. Britannia. Chapter 251. A miserable howl rang out from the palace. What happened? Doctor. Hearing the sound, Schnetzel rushed over with a group of guards into a room filled with experimental equipment. Your Highness Schnetzel, the man in the white coat, surrounded by experimental equipment, hung his head powerlessly and said with a sorrowful expression, Your Highness Schnetzel, bad news. Your Majesty, we have to go. What? Your Majesty, you have to go. Schnetzel was shocked and subconsciously looked towards the depths of the experimental equipment, where the sleeping chamber had been specially made, only to find that it was empty. In that instant, Schnetzel finally understood the meaning of the man in the white coat. Your Majesty, you have to go. Schnetzel, who understood, showed a shocked expression. After a long while, he slowly bent his knees and knelt towards the empty dormant cabin and kowtowed. Farewell, Your Majesty. Although the guards behind Schnetzel didn't quite understand, they still had some understanding of this laboratory. Thus, in their shock, the guards subconsciously followed Schnetzel and knelt towards the empty sleeping chamber. Amidst this respectful farewell, a beautiful figure quietly walked out from the shadows and stood behind the man in the white coat. Doctor, His Majesty's consciousness has disappeared. We can no longer detect the fluctuations of His Majesty's consciousness. Although it was unexpected, it wasn't out of our expectations. Phyllis, get ready. Yes, Doctor. Doctor. After the woman bowed slightly, she disappeared into the shadows again. The white-robed man stood to the side without batting an eyelid. He watched as Schnetzel led the guard through a simple ceremony to send His Majesty off to the heavens. After arranging for his funeral, he reached out to stop Schnetzel. Your Highness, please wait. I have a message left behind by His Majesty. It seems that His Majesty has long since predicted his future. What? A message left behind by His Majesty? It's for me? Schnetzel's eyebrows twitched, clearly surprised. Yes, Your Highness. It's about the Abyss army we just released. Perhaps in His Majesty's eyes, only His Highness Schneiser is qualified to command this army. The white-robed man's gaze paused on Schnetzel's face for a moment, and then he looked past his shoulder, landing outside the window at the imperial capital that had already burned half the sky. Imperial City, Pandora's Palace. After the Emperor decided to enter the world of C, the man he called a doctor, Suzuri, gradually released the army he had carefully trained according to the agreement between them. Now, it was time for Sisali, the doctor, to carry out the next step of their cooperation, even though the Emperor who cooperated with him had disappeared. However, for doctors, it was no longer important whether their collaborators were still around. More importantly, it was time to find another home for the power he had released. Otherwise, if he was discovered by those enemies with a keen sense of smell, he wouldn't be able to escape from this increasingly powerful vortex in time. Abyss. army. The doctor's gaze naturally attracted Skenetzel's attention. That powerful force that had suddenly appeared, but was able to flatten half of the planet's defenses in a short period of time, was naturally able to make Skenetzel's almost dead heart that could only respond to the prayers of others rapidly beat. Dr. Cesari, you're saying that His Majesty wants to give his force to me? The doctor slightly raised the corner of his mouth and nodded. Yes, Your Highness Schneiser. In this world, there's no one more suitable than you to control this force. At the same time, Gilkston Kingdom. The sky was filled with the flames of war. No matter how many times it was destroyed, it would always inadvertently recover to its perfect state. There were also panicking citizens. All of this made Cornelia, Veretta, and the others feel the pressure multiply. Your Highness, let's retreat to the shrine. Veretta piloted the Valkyrie, using the radiation shield in her left hand to take an enemy's attack head-on. And after sending the enemy flying with a flying kick, she loudly shouted to Cornelia through the channel. Hearing this, Cornelia showed a trace of seriousness. The enemy was too strong. Although this country had the title of the warrior nation, in the face of an enemy that was almost impossible to kill, even the strongest warrior would be exhausted. After a fierce battle, this temporary coalition of Gilkston, Cornelia's side, the Black Knight Regiment, and the Zero troops led by Layla were already firmly pressed on the only bridge leading to the city center. Your Highness, why don't we blow up this bridge to buy some time? In addition to Veretta's proposal to use the shrine as a stronghold for defense, Layla also proposed to blow up the only bridge. But Cornelia gritted her teeth, unable to make a decision for a while. Because this was not the Britannia Empire where she was born, but the Gilkston Kingdom. Even if she intended to use Layla's method, she still had to consider the thoughts of her master. If I'm going to do it. However, what Cornelia didn't expect was that the young king, who dragged his sick body and piloted the Valkyrie to battle, actually showed a decisive courage at this time. Your Majesty, however, some of our people are still lingering in the periphery. If we blow up the bridge now. Immediately after, Foguna's words chilled everyone's hearts. Save them first. Cornelia didn't hesitate and gave a straightforward answer. If I don't save them here, I'm afraid that when I see UFFI, I'll be scolded to death by UFFI. When Cornelia's Messiah took the lead to rush down the bridge, Cornelia's determined words sounded. Follow Her Highness's footsteps. Veretta and the others followed closely behind. Da-da-da-da. The bullets hit the enemy's armor and set off bursts of sparks, bursting into dazzling sparks. In this deadly and beautiful fireworks festival, the KMF fleet led by Cornelia kept shuttling back and forth in the outer city, rescuing the people trapped in the outer city at the fastest speed. Quick, Veretta arranged for people to send them back to the rear. After driving the body and waving the long lance to knock the enemy into an empty house, Cornelia gave the order loudly. Yes, Your Highness. Valletta nodded and said, Your Highness, I'm not going to give you a second chance. It's time for us to retreat. This is the last batch of survivors. Cornelia frowned and looked around at the surrounding houses that were submerged in the sea of fire and the black bodies that were gradually encircling in the swaying flames. This group of bastards that can't be killed. Let's retreat. Veretta. They had done their best. No matter how hard Cornelia, Veretta, and even the Zero troops and the Black Knight Regiment tried to kill the enemies, they couldn't kill the enemies that could be restored in a short period of time, even if they were turned into ashes. Is this all our attack can do? After everyone regrouped, Cornelia and the others returned to the bridge again. The young King Kaleo and the General Fogna were leading the soldiers to defend here. Cornelia. Thank you. The young King Kaleo's lips moved, but in the end, he expressed his gratitude to Cornelia. If they only relied on the existing forces of the Gilkston Kingdom, they could only watch the people trapped in the outer city be buried. No, I didn't do this for you. Cornelia shook her head and didn't care about Kaleo's gratitude. Your Highness, now we can retreat to the temple. The task of blowing up this bridge can be solved by our AI. At this time, Layla, who had arranged everything, sent a signal. Commander Layla, are you confident? As the only bridge to the inner city, it must have been strengthened at the beginning of the design and manufacture. Ordinary bombs and artillery fire would not be able to blow it up in a short period of time. Yes. This is also thanks to the help of the AI named Leopard. With the help of the software he developed, I have arranged everything at the key points of this bridge. Layla nodded and conveyed the program she had formulated to everyone's body system. This is... She saw through our real situation in such a short time. Fagna looked at the demonstration animation in front of him in surprise. Let's retreat. Fagna, cover the retreat. Kaleo once again showed the courage of a king and let Fagna lead the soldiers to cooperate with Cornelia and the others to gradually withdraw from the bridge. Then, under Layla's determined eyes, the only bridge exploded. Boom! Boom! Among the flying gravel and dust, the black body that surged onto the bridge rolled powerlessly in midair, was hit by flying stones, and finally fell into the water, setting off waves of water 10 meters tall. Gouda. Although it was a pity, Fagana, who was temporarily trapped on the other side of the bridge, finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the black body that brought them great pressure. Your Highness, what about the princess's prophecy? After letting out a sigh of relief, Faguna subconsciously asked Kaleo. No. Just as Kaleo was about to speak, Shyamna's voice suddenly came from behind. Kaleo, my brother, you have done very well. Now, retreat and rest for the time being. And Faguna and the soldiers of the kingdom, the same goes for all of you. Retreat and rest. Shyamna's appearance surprised everyone on Faguna's side, but also made them feel puzzled. Princess, but now, Faguna didn't dare to take his eyes off the black bodies gathered on the other side of the bridge. He was afraid that in the next moment, those unkillable enemies would cross the sea and rush to the temple. No, step down. From now on, the Gilkston Kingdom will welcome a powerful ally. Our destiny has been broken. Faguna, Shyamna's voice was impassioned and irrefutable. Ally, sister, what are you talking about? Before Kaleo could finish his words, 2 white lights suddenly rushed out from the temple behind Shyamna and extended into the sky. UFFI. UFFI. As soon as she saw the white lights appear, Cornelia felt a familiar aura. Warriors of Gilkston, people of Gilkston, raise your heads and look carefully. This is the moment when the Gilkston Kingdom breaks history and reincarnation. From now on, the Gilkston Kingdom will no longer be trapped on this barren land. Dong! At the peak of the white light, above the sky, a sound like the sound of a bell shook the world and attracted everyone's attention. Kacha! A sound like a bolt of lightning exploded in the sky. Heavens! The sky that the people of the Gilkston Kingdom had looked up to for 100 years shattered. Like glass shattering, the sky shattered, revealing a world that the people of Gilkston had never seen or imagined. 7 colors. Grotesque. And what was even more surprising was that in this colorful and grotesque world, a huge warship with a never-before-seen shape was slowly sailing out of the grotesque world of light and entering this world. That is, Faguna was shocked. Kaleo's eyes were wide open, and his expression was already frozen in shock. Look, my people of Gilkston. This is our Gilkston Kingdom's ally, the god from the starry sky. While Shyamna was loudly encouraging the people of Gilkston for this unfamiliar and huge warship, Cornelia and Veretta also showed an expression that said that they had expected it. As expected, they're still hiding in this world. As early as during the Kyushu campaign, the two had seen a huge warship of the same model. The warship in front of them looked very familiar, but the details were different. It was unfamiliar yet familiar. Is this the reinforcement that Lord and His Highness invited? Veretta retracted her gaze and seemed to be relieved. I'm afraid so. Cornelia didn't retract her gaze like Veretta, but she stared at the warship that entered this world from that unknown world. Suddenly, under her gaze on the left side of the huge warship, on the cantilever that looked like a deck, light spots suddenly appeared. That's the mecha used by that girl? Messiah's high-power camera was zoomed to the extreme by Cornelia, and only then could it capture the figure of the light spots flying out of the huge warship. Mecha? No, it's not a mecha. It's a transformed mecha. At first glance, Cornelia found that the true body of those light spots seemed to be somewhat similar to the mecha in service of the Britannia Empire. But in the next moment, the moment these mecha met the enemy, they turned into a half-human form and strangled the black mecha gathered on the other side with dazzling attacks. What surprised Cornelia even more was that under the attack of these transformed mecha, the black mecha no longer showed the terrifying recovery power and simply disappeared from this world. Chapter 252, Data Correction, Abyss Level 3. Continue to execute the A1 elimination plan. In the temple, Ray Minkai and Euphemia stood together and looked up at the holographic screen jointly played by their personal terminals. On it was a holographic projection map marked with countless data. It was a map within 100 kilometers with the capital of the Gilkston Kingdom as the center. On this map, the most eye-catching thing was the words LV3 marked in red above the map. This meant that the Abyss reaction level was 3. It was also enough for Ray Minkai and Euphemia, the pair of new inspectors, to use their first opportunity to call for reinforcements after taking up their post. Don't doubt it, don't make fun of it. As an inspector of the authority, when discovering an Abyss reaction level of 3 or above, calling for reinforcements was not a shameful thing. On the contrary, when the Abyss reaction level was extremely high, the inspector could even summon the main fleet that had been fighting against the Abyss all year round. Of course, the current Ray Minkai and Euphemia couldn't do this. What's more, the Abyss reaction that appeared in front of Ray Minkai and Euphemia was only level 3. Abyss reaction? Standing in the corner, Lu Lucio, who didn't leave the temple with Shyamna, looked at the holographic projection in front of Ray Minkai and Euphemia with flickering eyes. He knew that this was the last test left for the world by the me that had disappeared. Maybe this was just Lu Lucio's wishful thinking? However, Lu Lucio couldn't help but think otherwise. Because the process of defeating me was too smooth. It was so smooth that even Lu Lucio himself didn't imagine it. It was as if everything was planned. Lu Lucio. Now you can go out and tell Karen to get ready to fight back. Just as Lu Lucio began to let his imagination run wild, Ray Minkai's voice suddenly came. Lu Lucio shook his head. When he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Euphemia. Yes, Lu Lucio. Now, you can go out and inform Karen and the others. After we're done here, we may head straight to the imperial capital of Pandora. What? Go straight to Pandora and pay tribute? Lu Lucio was shocked, and then he looked up at the dome in realization. Above the temple, the huge battleship that had suddenly broken through the void was probably the source of Ray Minkai and Euphemia's confidence. With this battleship, no one in this world would be able to stop Ray Minkai and Euphemia. I understand. I'll go inform them now. Understanding the situation, Lu Lucio did not hesitate and simply turned to leave the temple. When Lu Lucio's figure disappeared from the entrance of the temple, a burly man in a military uniform appeared on the holographic projection screen. He had a pair of deep blue eyes, and his black hair was carefully combed into a slicked-back hairstyle. At first glance, he looked like a young man of about 25 years old, but inside, he was actually a 90-year-old man. Long time no see. Inspector Ray Minkai and Her Royal Highness the Princess. I didn't expect us to meet again. The man who appeared in front of Ray Minkai and Euphemia was Hudson S. William, the captain of the Macross Windchime that Ray Minkai and Euphemia took when they returned to the Lu Lucio world. After the Windchime sent Ray Minkai and Euphemia back to the Lu Lucio world, it went to the depths of the space-time channel to perform the confidential mission it was responsible for. Unexpectedly, the battleship that responded to Ray Minkai and Euphemia's request for support turned out to be the Windchime. Captain, we didn't expect it. It seems that we are fated to be together. Today, I'll have to trouble you. Ray Minkai smiled and nodded. Haha, no problem. Eliminating the abyss is our responsibility. Your Excellency, Inspector, please give the order. According to the Abyss Defense Law and the administration's wartime regulations, I and everyone on the Macross Windchime will temporarily be under the Inspector's command. Captain Hudson laughed and then saluted Ray Minkai and Euphemia solemnly. When he saluted, a petite and cute little figure with long blue hair and golden eyes also jumped into the camera from outside the screen and saluted Ray Minkai together with Hudson. Macross Windchime's Mine Corps, Fong Ling reporting to the Inspector, thank you for your assistance. Now, please clear the abyss around this country as soon as possible. After taking in our people, the Windchime will immediately ascend to the stratosphere and head here as quickly as possible. Lei Minkai reached out and tapped on the holographic screen. After sending the coordinates of Pandora to the Windchime, he continued, that's right. Although we don't have much information on hand, according to my personal conjecture, this should be the focal point of the abyss's reaction. Concentrate our power and break through it? I got it. Fong Ling. Or what's the situation with the X9 fleet? Hudson's style was swift and decisive. After receiving the order, he immediately took action. Yes, Captain. Now, the 6X9 fleets and the Blood Fawn Brigade on my ship have all been dispatched and have successfully completed 2/3 of the battle plan in 10 minutes. The girl standing next to Hudson straightened her back and loudly responded to Hudson's order. Yes, very good. Release the transport ship and fully cooperate with the Inspector's next task. Yes, execute immediately. After giving the orders one by one, Hudson looked at Ray Minkai and Euphemia again. Sir Inspector, Your Highness, in the next half an hour, I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you. Please arrange for boarding personnel as soon as possible. Understood. Sorry to trouble you, Captain. Iron wings spread across the sky. Engines roared. And there were so many missiles that it almost made one's scalp tingle, dragging long tails as they whistled through the air. All of this was the current situation in the sky above the capital of the Gilkston Kingdom. And the side that was fighting fiercely just now, the allied forces formed by Shario, Fagana, the Gilkston Kingdom, Cornelia, Layla, and the others could only stare blankly at the fleets that quickly strangled the enemy and flew further and further away until they disappeared above the airspace of the capital of the Gilkston Kingdom. Princess Shyamna, there are no major problems here. Next, we still have a place to go. I'll leave this place to you. While everyone was shocked by the monstrous performance of the X9 fleets released by the Windchime, Ray Minkai and Euphemia also walked out of the temple. Their voices were accompanied by the transport ships sent by Hudson. Go. Where are we going? Looking at the pirates Gouda and Lancelot slowly being loaded into the storage of the transport ship, Cornelia couldn't help but ask the question in everyone's mind. Royal Capital, Pandora. Royal Capital, Pandora. Scanazel sat on the sofa and silently looked at the strangely shaped scepter in his hand that strangely fit the aesthetic standards of the Empire. This was the scepter that the doctor named Zisali gave him not long ago. According to him, this scepter could command the soldiers of the abyss created by the Empire. As long as he controlled this power, Scanazel would have the qualifications to challenge the whole world. Why give it to me? Scanazel couldn't help but have doubts in his heart. Scanazel knew very well what kind of existence he was. A self that was close to having no desires. A personality that fully responded to the wishes of others. This was undoubtedly. Scanazel muttered to himself for a moment, then finally gripped the scepter tightly, got up, and strode out of the room. A few minutes later, the black Sunderland that lingered around Pandora suddenly raised their heads and looked at the sky in unison. There, a huge shadow was rapidly descending from the nine heavens. Boom! There was no warning, nor was there any announcement. While the broken clouds were still spreading in all directions, a dazzling light erupted from the front of the huge shadow. The light flashed. The mountain behind the imperial capital, Pandora, instantly turned into nothingness, leaving only a huge hole that seemed to be telling the story. This wasn't over yet. At the same time that the light disappeared, the huge figure that broke through the clouds and descended from the sky flipped and transformed into the form of a titan that only appeared in myths and legends. Huge, terrifying was the shock brought by this huge figure at this moment. Immediately after, dozens of light spots quickly rose from the left arm of this titan-like figure, like a goshawk hunting. The moment it whistled from the sky to the combat altitude, it released an astonishing number of missiles, washing the black Sunderland on ground. Boom, boom, boom. Standing in the bridge of the Windscheme, through the panoramic observation deck, they watched the entire process of the V9 fleet and the Bloodfang team attacking the black Sunderland below. Everyone was silent, except for Ray Minkai and Euphemia, as well as the White Cat State Zero lying on Ray Minkai's shoulder. Cornelia, Veretta, and Layla were shocked by the performance of the Windscheme at this moment. Although they had speculated about the combat power of the Windscheme, when they saw the huge hull of the Windscheme, they didn't expect the attack power of the Windscheme to be so terrifying. With just one attack, a mountain was razed to the ground. In the V9 fleet and the Bloodfang team that were released, the weapons that these airframes were equipped with were probably developed to deal with the countless Black Sunderland. Sister Royal, the vastness of this world is far beyond our imagination, right? Euphemia stood beside Cornelia and said softly. At this moment, Cornelia, who was completely shocked, could only nod slowly. Cornelia and the others were not the only ones who were shocked. Standing in the palace, Skanazel, who was preparing to control the Abyss army created by Siseri, was also shocked by the Macross Windscheme that descended from the sky and turned into a steel giant. While being deeply shocked, Skanazel, who was smarter than others, also understood why the scepter in his hand was handed to him. This was not the trust of the Emperor, nor was it a dying wish, nor was it the wisdom of the doctor. The appearance of this scepter was only a trap. The purpose was to use him, to use Skanazel's name to resist, no, to stop the enemy's pursuit. Perhaps, from the beginning, the Emperor and the doctor had already prepared for this arrangement. But what they did not expect was that the Emperor would have an accident. Now, it seemed that the purpose of this scepter's existence was to make him and Skanazel cannon fodder. Your Highness, what do we do now? The loyal adjutant, Cannon, stood behind Skanazel and asked softly. The moment Skanazel showed hesitation, he had already sensed the prince's hesitation. Now, Cannon, it seems that we have to make a choice. A choice as a human. Skanazel's eyes flashed. He raised his head to look at the mythical titan-like figure and secretly sighed. If they didn't appear, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to resist stepping into this sweet trap. Your Highness, Cannon looked at the scepter Skanazel handed over in surprise. Take it. Think of it as a gift for the birth of a new emperor. Skanazel stared unblinkingly at the Windscheme that had turned into human form and slightly lowered his head. Long live the Britannia Empire. Skanazel's order to not resist threw all the troops left in Pandora into chaos. But after this short period of chaos, they couldn't help but feel relieved, because the two princesses that everyone in Pandora was very familiar with had appeared. The moment the two princesses appeared from the transport ship, surrounded by 10 V9 drones that landed in the royal airport, all the tense citizens of the royal capital breathed a sigh of relief. So, after all the fighting, it was just an internal dispute within the royal family. Welcome, Your Highness Cornelia. Welcome, Your Highness Euphemia. After making the decision to surrender, Skanazel's movements couldn't be said to be slow. In less than half a day, all the civil and military officials of the royal capital had been organized and brought to the royal airport to welcome the return of the two princesses, Cornelia and Euphemia. Moreover, when Skanazel saw Cornelia take half a step back, showing that Euphemia was in charge, he felt that his decision was so correct. Brother Skanazel, just as I expected, you've made a wise decision. Cornelia stood in front of Skanazel and sighed slightly. You must be joking. Cornelia, I was just responding to the situation. Skanazel smiled slightly and looked up at the giant steel titan that stood quietly on the edge of the royal capital, but looked down on the capital from beginning to end. No matter who it is, as long as they see this mythical version of the descent, they will make a wise decision. Cornelia knew what Scanazel was talking about. Yes, the appearance of this Macross called the Windchime was undoubtedly the last straw that broke the Empire's back. When a new sun rises, the Empire will welcome a new monarch. Chapter 253. Half a month's time was not considered long, especially under the cover of increasingly busy work. Almost everyone felt that there was not enough time. Between the curtains that were blown up by the breeze, Ray Minkai's gaze passed through the undulating curtains and landed on the rapidly rebuilding imperial capital outside. Although the Windchime did not cause much damage to imperial capital Pandoragon, the appearance of the Black Sunderland brought serious damage to imperial capital Pandoragon. And this damage was not only limited to the damage on the surface, but more of it was hidden in the darkness. Under the request of the Windchime's captain, Hudson, a medical team appointed by the authority was stationed in imperial capital Pandoragon and also brought the preliminary examination report for Ray Minkai and Euphemia. The situation was not optimistic. According to the report, in the short span of less than a year after Charles went missing and Lelouchius, who came from another world, ascended to the throne, everyone in the imperial capital of Pandora had been infected by the abyss. However, the infected people's external performance was either big or small. Most of them experienced the emotional changes of the infected people. And Skenetzel, the prince who did not hesitate to surrender in the face of the overwhelming power brought by the Windchime, was also one of the infected people. However, the extent of his infection was not as serious as the other nobles. Looks like in a short period of time, the Empire will have to focus on internal reorganization. Ray Minkai thought for a while, then raised the pen and signed his name on it, then picked up the document and handed it to the brown-skinned adjutant standing beside him. Veretta, give this document to Her Highness Cornelia. I believe she will be interested in the contents. Yes, sir. Q Department. After the war ended, this department still existed as the direct department of the Empress. From Ray Minkai to Veretta and the rest of the subordinates, almost everyone came from the original Q Department. It's Sir Zero. This subordinate has been rude. Please come in. Just as Valletta opened the door, she saw a majestic white lion with snow-white mane sitting outside the door. It was almost 5 meters long and had a majestic aura. Around this lion stood 4 courteous and respectful palace maids. Veretta, don't mind me. Go to your thing. The snow-white lion raised its huge paw and waved it, indicating that Veretta did not need to care about its existence. Yes. Then, Lord Zero, I will take my leave. Looking at the departing figure of the brown beauty, State Zero tilted his huge head slightly and said to the maid behind him, Let's go. You guys wait here. Yes. Lord Zero. Looking at the maidservants who were as loyal as puppets, State Zero pursed his lips and shook his head. He then stepped forward and squeezed into Ray Minkai's office. Damn it. I could still get in yesterday. Why is it so crowded today? The snow-white lion found that the door seemed to have narrowed and spent a lot of effort to let himself into the room. He could not help but complain. It's you who ate too much. State Zero. Lei Minkai walked over from behind the desk and stood beside the lion. He raised his head and looked at the huge beast that had grown to a height of 8 meters in just half a month. He had no choice but to raise his head to look at it. It's just a side effect of indigestion. It will be fine after a while. The snow-white lion rolled its eyes and lay on the ground with a whoosh. His huge body even caused the floor to tremble. If it was not for the fact that this was the central area of the palace and the quality of the building was absolutely up to standard, the floor might have been smashed through by the snow-white lion's almost violent action. So, Kai, did you catch those guys? After lying on the ground for a while, the snow-white lion raised its head slightly and looked at Ray Minkai. No, Captain Hudson and the others have already sent out all their men. That noisy guy has also taken over the drone search team that the administration has sent over. I believe that there should be results soon. Ray Minkai casually sat on the sofa and shook his head. However, according to my personal opinion, I'm afraid that those people should have already left this world. Oomph. They escaped really fast. The lion snorted. It understood Lei Minkai's words very well. It was just that they probably did not expect that the hole they originally dug for Ray Minkai and the others would jump out at the last moment. Even the scepter that could control Black Sunderland was personally handed over to Euphemia by Sconazel. After a few exchanges, this was obviously an item with a very high reaction level. Without a doubt, it was jointly signed by Ray Minkai and Euphemia, and sent by the Bloodfang Brigade sent by Hudson to the City of Stars, the SPF Authority. Speaking of which, tomorrow, will you still attend with this posture? Ray Minkai sized up the snow-white lion's body. It seemed to have grown a little. Can't I? Anyway, the two fragments are almost digested. This body is about to return to its original appearance. The snow-white lion shook its head, causing its snow-white mane to fly in all directions. In other words, there will be a new form? Faced with Ray Minkai's question, the lion only snorted a few times and waved its claws. You wish. Did you recover any memories this time? Ray Minkai was taken aback. He remembered that during this period of time, he really did not enter the world of Soth's mechanical beasts again like before to search for lost memories. It's just some supplements. The snow-white lion looked around and found that its huge body had already occupied more than half of the space in the room. In the end, it gave up the idea of rolling on the ground. Kai, I'm leaving first. Oh, right. Your Highness the Princess wants to see you. Recently, she has been troubled by the etiquette officer. Speechlessly looking at the door that was broken by the snow-white lion, Ray Minkai helplessly patted his head. This bastard, did he not have any idea of his huge body size? Does he still think that he is the cute little white cat from before? But then again, because Sconazel and the others did not hesitate to elect Euphemia Libertania as the 99th Empress of the Britannia Empire, Ray Minkai and the White Cat State Zero would also be appointed as the Empress's personal guard knight captain and the Empire's sacred beast after the Empress Ascension ceremony. Therefore, the White Cat State Zero could get a palace where it could play as much as it wanted. As long as this guy did not get carried away and reveal its steel body, no matter how big the palace was, it would be torn down by it. It's time to go see UFFI. During this half a month, Ray Minkai was very busy. Because Euphemia was busy with the Ascension, whether it was the Imperial Capital's defense, Q department, or even the patrol officer's work was all on Ray Minkai's shoulders. Therefore, the busy two could only find time to contact each other through video communication. Right now, it might be a chance to meet. With this thought in mind, Ray Minkai left the office, casually dismissed the guards who wanted to follow him, and walked alone towards the palace where Euphemia was. Along the way, as long as the guards saw Ray Minkai's figure, they would all straighten their backs, raise the spears in their hands, and salute to Ray Minkai. The news that Ray Minkai was about to become the personal guard knight captain was not a secret. As long as one was slightly well-informed, they would have heard the news. Not to mention State Zero, the huge and mighty snow-white lion that always swaggered around the palace. UFFI know, where is Her Highness the Empress? Ray Minkai turned his gaze and saw a few maids pushing a dining cart out from the other side of the aisle. He remembered that among these maids, the maid with a ponytail seemed to be the new maid that was sent to Euphemia's side. It's Sir Knight Captain. When the maid saw Ray Minkai's face clearly, she suddenly panicked and shouted, Calm down, Eunice. The calm maid at the side quickly stabilized the maid with a ponytail. Yes, I was rude. Looking at the flustered maid, Ray Minkai shook his head, indicating that it was okay. Calm down. I don't eat people. If it caused you trouble, I'm sorry. But I want to ask what Her Highness the Empress is doing now. The one who answered Ray Minkai was not the maid with a ponytail called Eunice, but the maid who stabilized the maid with a ponytail. Sir Knight Captain, Her Highness the Empress just finished the last rehearsal and should be resting now. You can go and visit Her Highness the Empress. Okay, I got it. Thank you very much. After Rei Minkai got the answer he wanted, he strode past the maids and walked toward the palace in front of him. Aisha, didn't you say that when you want to see Her Highness the Empress, you have to inform her first? The maid with a ponytail glanced at Rei Minkai's leaving figure and asked hesitantly, Idiot, that's what others do. For Sir Knight Captain, there's no need to inform. The calm maid knocked Eunice's little head and led the maids to push the dining cart away. As the maid named Aisha said, Rei Minkai didn't encounter any obstacles at all. Even when the guards saw Rei Minkai appear, they took the initiative to make way for him to enter the palace where Euphemia lived. What Rei Minkai didn't expect was that as soon as he stepped into the palace, he heard Euphemia talking with someone else. And that voice was very familiar to Rei Minkai. It's her? How come she's here? Since there was a guest, Rei Minkai couldn't do anything reckless. He had to obediently let the guard at the door report. The next moment, Euphemia's surprised voice sounded. Minkai, you're here. Her pink long hair fluttered in the air. Before it fell, Euphemia flew into Rei Minkai's arms. She was so excited that she couldn't control herself. The court etiquette master who followed behind couldn't help but frown. But she didn't dare to say anything. Euphemia's performance in the Ascension rehearsal was very outstanding. Therefore, it was necessary to relax appropriately. UFFI. Sorry, it took me so long to see you. Rei Minkai softly apologized, then looked up at the palace door. Sir, I didn't expect you to come. When she heard Rei Minkai's address, the beautiful figure standing at the palace door waved her hand and showed a disgusted expression. Don't call me sir. In the sequence of the inspector, I'm not much higher than you. Strictly speaking, I'm just your guide. Rei Minkai. The person who came was the girl who brought Rei Minkai and Euphemia to Star City, Himimi. She, who hadn't been seen for a long time, suddenly appeared in Lu Lucio's world again and became the guest of Euphemia, the empress who was about to ascend the throne. Are you confused? Just in time. Since you're here, it saves me the effort of looking for you. Come, UFFI, let's continue the topic just now. Now, you can make a decision. Decision. Rei Minkai looked at Euphemia in confusion. It's about the trade between our world and Star City. Euphemia whispered in Rei Minkai's ear. Trade? At the mention of this word, Rei Minkai remembered the busy spaceport of Star City and the relevant information about these spaceports. This is our preliminary document of intent. Rei Minkai and UFFI, you can take a look. After everyone returned to the palace and sat down, Himimi took out a document and handed it to Rei Minkai and Euphemia. According to our research during this period of time, the cherry stone produced in this world not only contains enough powerful energy, but also has excellent adaptability. It can be used in the research and development of the latest warship and body development projects in Star City. Under Himimi's introduction, Rei Minkai flipped through the document of intent and quickly understood the excellent adaptability she mentioned. How much does Star City, or perhaps the Authority, want? Rei Minkai pondered for a moment and asked the question of the world's energy agency. If possible, we want all of the shares. But considering that the energy system of this world is dominated by cherry stone, our plan is to set up a nuclear fusion reactor energy supply system for this world at no cost. At the same time, we will adjust the share of cherry stone according to the actual situation. Himimi's proposal looked good. Rei Minkai, who was familiar with Lu Lucio's world, was very clear. Although the cherry stone energy of this world looked good, it was actually difficult when it came to interstellar navigation. Was cherry stone a specialty that only existed on Earth? No one dared to confirm this question, but it didn't affect interstellar exploration. This tall fortress blocked the humans of this world. Therefore, a reliable and solid new energy system was the urgent need of Lu Lucio's world. UFFI. What do you mean? Mimi. Sorry. Although I agree with this proposal, I must discuss it with the officials of the Empire after tomorrow before I can make a decision. Euphemia first apologized and then adopted a businesslike attitude. On this point, Himimi was not disgusted. She even nodded her head in appreciation. No problem. Not to mention, I didn't come here just for this matter. Himimi smiled and saluted Euphemia. By the order of the Qin Army's army commander, Mo Ming, Inspector Himimi will be the special envoy of the SPF, authority to attend the ascension ceremony of the new empress of the Britannia Empire, Euphemia Libertania. She will also send a congratulatory gift from the army and the authority. Chapter 254. The sun was shining brightly, and the sky was clear. The imperial capital, Pandora. At this time, colorful flags were already fluttering, and flowers were in full bloom. On the main road leading to the palace, Vincent, a seventh-generation KMF airframe used by the royal guards, was wearing a red cloak, had distinct edges and corners, and was full of majesty. There were gorgeous patterns on the armor, and they stood straight on both sides of the road with long night guns in their hands. Today was the day when the Britannia Empire welcomed a new emperor to the throne. Although the preparation time for the new emperor's ascension was only half a month, with the help of the distinguished guest from the starry sky, they completed the preparation plan that used to take half a year, or even longer, to complete. Moreover, even while carrying out such a serious task, the royal knight who stayed in their airframes could not help but look at the sky above the palace. There, two huge warships that were roughly the same in shape, but with obvious differences in length, were quietly suspended above the palace. One was the cosmic warship Macross Windchime that helped the third princess, Her Highness Euphemia, regain the throne from the traitors. The other was the cosmic warship Macross Demonis, owned by Himimi, a good friend of the third princess, Her Highness Euphemia, a girl from the cosmic city of Star Glory that drifted in the depths of the universe. Under the tremendous pressure brought by these two huge cosmic warships, even the nobles, large and small, who were dissatisfied with the third princess, Euphemia Libertania, suddenly winning the throne of the Britannia Empire, could only silently accept this fact. After all, even if all these nobles were connected together, they would not be as powerful as a casual main cannon. The huge pit behind the imperial capital, Pandora, still emitted a trace of energy reaction that was blown up by the Windchime. As long as they witnessed the energy sparks that were constantly jumping in the depths of the pit, no one would dare to show their dissatisfaction and dissent on their faces. All that was left was to respectfully and obediently send the third princess, Her Highness Euphemia Libertania, to the throne. How boring. On the upper floor of the audience hall, on the balcony overlooking the entire royal square, a young girl looked at the respectful faces of the nobles, who seemed to be full of confidence and loyalty to the new empress who was about to ascend the throne, and showed a trace of disdain. This is something that can't be helped. After all, no one would show any signs of dissent in the face of absolute power. The nobles who know how to protect themselves are even more so. The young man, standing beside the young man, shrugged his shoulders and said disapprovingly, Hey, no matter what, these people are your comrades. You would have to deal with them in the future. Is it really okay for you to say that? Rei Minkai. The young girl looked at the young man in surprise and clicked her tongue in wonder. No, I'm just a knight. There is no need to deal with these nobles at all. Besides, with the situation here stabilized, the patrol officer should have other missions waiting for me. Rei Minkai shook his head. After the new empress ascended the throne, his appointment would also be issued. As mentioned before, Rei Minkai's appointment was only the position of the empress's personal guard knight captain. As for the other positions, Rei Minkai did not care about them, and did not want to add a few more unnecessary positions besides the position of knight captain. This was because Rei Minkai himself was a patrol officer who needed to go to other space-time to carry out missions. In the long run, he and the White Cat State Zero still had to collect the fragments scattered all over the universe and restore their homeworld. Isn't this too boring? Moreover, according to the current situation, I'm afraid UFFI won't be able to go on missions with you in a short period of time. Himimi turned around and sat lightly on the railing. She shook her legs and small head and said slowly, "After all, this is a crucial period for the new Empress's ascension. Whether or not we can control the entire empire in our hands depends on our efforts during this period." Rei Minkai knew very well what Himimi said and understood. As the saying goes, there is nothing new under the sun. The situation that Euphemia was about to face had played out countless times in the thousands of years of history of Rei Minkai's distant eastern hometown. Now, Euphemia had also reached this step. Moreover, this step was also due to Rei Minkai's contribution. "I know. I have always known UFFI's wish. All I can do is to support her." Rei Minkai nodded and looked down at the nobles who gathered around Cornelia and showed a flattering smile. If Rei Minkai appeared in the square below, he would probably face the same predicament as Cornelia. One must know that the valiant Cornelia on the battlefield was not willing to argue with these nobles who were good at talking but were actually good-for-nothings. "It's really tough. Your Highness Cornelia, the feeling of wanting to be angry but having to endure it, I also understand." Himimi noticed that Rei Minkai also showed a look of lingering fear after looking at Cornelia. "You also encountered it?" Rei Minkai was surprised. But on second thought, Rei Minkai was not too clear about Himimi's identity, but he could conclude that Himimi's identity was not simple. Therefore, Himimi encountered the same siege that Cornelia was facing now, which did not surprise Rei Minkai. "And yes, a group of annoying flies," Himimi muttered unhappily, and then pulled the topic back to the main topic. "I also know UFFI's wish. UFFI's decision was not wrong. If any world wants to continue to develop and maintain a healthy state of development, it needs to constantly expand its horizons and explore more unknown worlds." While speaking, Himimi pointed at Rei Minkai and then at the palace behind him. "This world is very lucky. Your appearance led to Euphemia, the heir to the empire, being brought to Star Glory City and seeing a bigger and wider world with her own eyes. Therefore, this world was broken." Himimi put her hands together in a circle and gestured to Rei Minkai. "Before you returned to this world was just wrapped in an invisible shell. Day after day, month after month, year after year, it lived its own small life. Even with my appearance, it was still the same." Rei Minkai looked at Himimi's gesture and pondered for a moment. "According to what you said, our return is equivalent to breaking the shell that the world is wrapped in?" "Correct." Himimi undid her gesture and gave Rei Minkai a thumbs up. "According to my father, every person who enters the other world is a nail in the coffin. But whether or not the nail can break the shell of the world depends on the nail's own ability." "Nail?" Rei Minkai fell silent thoughtfully. Thinking about it carefully, it was indeed as Himimi's father said. He himself was like a nail that was accidentally inserted into the core of the world. As long as he was strong enough, this nail could erupt with enough power to change the world and the course of history. Dong! 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 At this moment, the bell rang. It was the bell that signaled the beginning of the coronation ceremony. The crucial moment had finally arrived. "All right, Sir Knight Captain, you should hurry back to your post. Your mission has been completed, and I don't need you to accompany me anymore." Hearing the bell, Himimi jumped down from the railing, clapped her hands, and waved at Rei Minkai. "Then I'll go first. See you later." "See you later." The bell rang loudly. Standing in the royal square, the royal guards straightened their backs and showed their best side. Next, the new emperor of the Britannia Empire would cross the royal square and step into the audience hall. Under the gaze of all the nobles in the empire, his royal sister, Cornelia Lee Britannia, would put the crown on his head and become the new emperor of the empire. Although this was not in accordance with the procedure of the throne change. However, as mentioned before, in the face of absolute power, any objections were nothing more than the meowing of a kitten. When the sun was about to rise to the center of the sky, the flag appeared. The flag that symbolized the ascension of the new emperor appeared in the royal square, and all the royal guards standing in the royal square could not help but feel refreshed. They brought out 200% of their strength to welcome the arrival of the new emperor. Under the fluttering flag was a lion with snow-white sideburns, a huge body, a ferocious expression, and a small crown on its head. And on his back, there was a girl in a red robe with a snow-white background embroidered with gorgeous patterns. The third princess of the Britannia Empire, Euphemia Lee Britannia, who was about to ascend the throne and become the new emperor of the empire. Step by step, the huge lion carried Her Highness the Empress across the royal square under the watchful eyes of the nobles, surrounded by many guards. Stepping on the stairs leading to the audience hall, through the door that was opened for them, they came to the center of the audience hall. In front of the stairs, in front of the throne, the snow-white lion slowly lowered his body. Ray Minkai, who had been waiting for a long time, took a few steps forward, bent down, and stretched out his hand, ready to welcome Euphemia when she landed. Looking at Ray Minkai's right hand, Euphemia smiled and gently put her small hand on Ray Minkai's hand, then jumped and landed lightly on the ground. "Your Highness, please." Ray Minkai led Euphemia to the front of the stairs. In front of the stairs, Euphemia looked up. Standing on the stairs was her royal sister, Cornelia Lee Britannia. At this time, the Empire's Valkyrie was looking down at Euphemia with a very oppressive attitude. "Who are you?" the Empire's Valkyrie asked. As soon as these words came out, there was a commotion among the nobles who were watching. However, under the influence of the so-called noble etiquette, this commotion was just a flash. Cornelia and even Euphemia were not affected by this commotion. "I'm Euphemia Lee Britannia, the third princess of the Empire." Euphemia raised her head slightly and looked directly at her royal sister. Obviously, this was different from the ascension drill that Euphemia had conducted in the past half a month. As a witness, Cornelia's speech and actions were beyond everyone's expectations. This completely violated the ascension process that had been issued to people. "Euphemia Lee Britannia, why are you here?" Cornelia's gaze gradually became stern and cold. "For the throne." Euphemia answered again. "The throne? Then answer me." "Euphemia Lee Britannia, among the heirs of the empire, you're not the first. Why do you want to ascend to the throne? What qualifications do you have to ascend to the throne?" Wow. Cornelia's unexpected words exposed the dissatisfaction in the hearts of many nobles. These questions had been brewing in the hearts of many nobles for a long, long time. They were only forced to suppress it due to the absolute power of Macross. Now it was exposed by an unexpected person, Cornelia Lee Britannia. In the minds of many nobles, the Empire's second princess was undoubtedly the most protective of Euphemia. Therefore, she was also regarded as one of the most powerful and staunch insiders in promoting Euphemia's ascension to the throne. Why? At this critical moment, Cornelia made this move that was almost a betrayal. However, Euphemia did not show any signs of panic. Instead, she looked calm. Under the gaze of many nobles, the third princess Euphemia said, "A year ago, I was on the verge of death. With this opportunity, I saw a world that I had never seen before, never heard of, and never imagined. Over there, I saw things that no one here could believe or even imagine. Things that no one here could imagine. It was unimaginably huge. It had a port that was busy day and night, and it quietly streaked across the starry sky. Battleships up to 1,000 meters long gathered in the orbit of the planet and launched a journey to the distant and unknown galaxy. Alien races with green skin, crystal wings, small, burly, and unique shapes, with different civilizations and languages, lived together harmoniously under the leadership of the power called the City of Stars, blossoming into beautiful flowers of civilization. With that, Euphemia turned around and looked around. She looked at the nobles who were either confused, contemplative, contemptuous, or even suspicious. "Do you believe everything I said?" With her red robe fluttering, Euphemia stretched out her right hand, and the scepter that symbolized imperial power was placed in her hand by Veretta, who was standing by the side. As the scepter was raised high, Euphemia loudly said the declaration she wanted to say. "I know that you won't believe everything I said, and you won't believe it, but this has nothing to do with me, because even if you don't believe it, It's fine if you don't want to believe it. I, Euphemia Libertania, will show this real world in front of you in the name of the new Empress of the Britannia Empire. Those who don't want to gradually rot in this decaying world, please follow me. Those who don't want to see the new world and stubbornly live in their own world, let them powerlessly and completely turn into the residue of history in the decaying coffin. Chapter 255. In the end, the crown was placed on Euphemia's head. From this moment onwards, it meant that the Britannia Empire welcomed a new queen. Perhaps it was because of Euphemia's previous speech, but even though there was a grand banquet to celebrate the new queen's birth, most of the nobles had a heavy heart. However, soon, these nobles would realize that their worries were nothing. After receiving a few representatives of the great nobles who came to congratulate him on his ascension, it was finally the foreign guests' turn. Originally, this was just a routine segment to proclaim the glory of the Britannia Empire. However, at this moment, the pair of girls that appeared beside Euphemia attracted the attention of many nobles. Although the taller girl was wearing an elegant long dress, there was a faint sense of familiarity between her eyebrows. It's him or her. Some of the nobles with outstanding memory immediately recalled the identity of this girl. Wasn't this the distinguished guest who was suddenly invited by the previous emperor a year ago with a national etiquette? When the nobles realized this, they looked at each other and subconsciously focused their attention on the meeting between Euphemia and the girl. Congratulations, Euphemia. You are finally on the path that you wanted to take. Mimi placed her right hand on her chest and bowed slightly to Euphemia. No, Mimi, you don't have to be so polite. There is no need for this between us. We are friends, aren't we? The crown on her head shone brightly, but Euphemia did not use it to reveal her identity to her good friend. No, Your Majesty. Now, you and I are the Emperor of the Empire, and the envoys that were ordered to come and congratulate you. The necessary etiquette is still necessary. Mimi smiled lightly, and her eyes swept around the nobles that were paying attention to them. Euphemia noticed Mimi's actions and clearly felt Mimi's sincerity. Thank you. Euphemia nodded and thanked him softly. Mimi's lips curled up slightly, and she immediately shouted, "If you want to wear the crown, you must first bear its weight." Now it seems that Empress Euphemia is indeed qualified to wear this imperial crown. Then, the petite girl with long blonde hair who had been standing beside Mimi opened her hands, revealing a crystal-clear cube that was flowing with golden light. The appearance of this cube instantly attracted everyone's attention. At this moment, in everyone's eyes, the cube seemed to have become a peerless treasure. It was so eye-catching that they wished they could take it for themselves. "Nana, what is this?" Euphemia exclaimed and looked at the blonde girl in confusion. It turned out that this blonde girl was Mimi's half-sister, especially with the presence of Mimi, the elder sister who had an extremely strong aura and was exceptionally eye-catching. Nana, who had been silent all this time, was not noticed by anyone, until the moment she released the cube. This is the core of the ruling throne. Empress Euphemia. Nana held the cube and gently pushed it in the direction of Euphemia. The cube jumped from Nana's palm lightly. After drawing a trajectory in the air, it stopped in front of Euphemia and rotated quietly. Core. Ray Minkai, who was watching this scene, had a flash of light in his eyes, and he had already guessed what it was. I'm afraid that this is the congratulatory gift that the authority specially selected to let Euphemia stabilize the situation as soon as possible, so as to launch the trade between Lu Lucia World and Xingyao City. Otherwise, how could this world, which couldn't even be set foot in space, be hit by such a heavy gift? Ruling throne. It sounds like it's specially prepared for me. Is it? Euphemia's gaze was fixed on the cube for a while. Then she looked up at Mimi and Nana and asked, "Yes, because the technology of this world is too backward. Even if Empress Euphemia has issued a decree, it is impossible to complete a spaceport that can trade with us and the authority in a short time. Therefore, we decided to give the ruling throne as a congratulatory gift to Her Majesty." Hinana nodded her little head and criticized the low-level technology of this world with a hint of disdain. As soon as her words came out, it caused dissatisfaction among most of the nobles present. For a long time, due to the size of the empire and its strong competitiveness, with the efforts of a large number of elite scientists, the scientific and technological level of the Britannia Empire has always been at the forefront, leading the world. It was this kind of pride that was criticized as worthless by a petite and powerless young girl. "Your Majesty," some impatient nobles finally couldn't help but jump out. However, they were blocked by a purple light wall that suddenly appeared, and in the blink of an eye, they were locked in a small space that was sealed by purple light walls in all directions. So noisy, the corners of Inanna's mouth curled up slightly, and she actually vaguely revealed a little devilish smile. The sudden appearance of the purple light wall and the nobles trapped inside did not scare the other nobles away. Instead, it aroused the anger of the other nobles. "Your Majesty, hurry, hurry and chase this troublemaking girl out. Your Majesty, this is not an ambassador at all." In the blink of an eye, the solemn audience hall had turned into a market at this moment, causing Ray Minkai, Cornelia, and even Scanazel to frown. When Scanazel saw that Ray Minkai and Cornelia did not immediately step forward to stop this chaos, he could not help but remain silent. He let these nobles who were not afraid of death continue to cause trouble. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, one by one, translucent purple cubes that were half the height of a person suddenly appeared in the audience hall. And every time it appeared, it meant that a protesting noble would be locked in this cage. In just a few minutes, in the entire audience hall, except for Ray Minkai, Cornelia's side, and Scanazel's side, almost all the other nobles were locked in this half-transparent cage. "What? Use your so-called advanced imperial technology to break my Klein force field." With a clap of her small hands, Hinana raised her small head proudly. Obviously, she was very satisfied with her masterpiece. These noisy nobles were like ducks that had been locked in a cage. They had all turned mute and looked at her in horror. "All right, Nana, don't go too far. Let them go." Himimi, who knew when to stop, gently patted Nana's head and turned to look at Euphemia. "Sorry, Your Majesty, my sister is just having fun for a while." In this regard, Euphemia just smiled lightly and did not think much of it. "It's okay. I see that everyone is having fun with Missy Nana. Besides, there are no accidents. Just let him be." Euphemia saw through Himimi's intentions at a glance. Therefore, under the two of them singing one another, they unknowingly put on a show of strength. Perhaps Inanna was deliberately showing off, or perhaps she hadn't had enough fun, but when she removed the Klein force field that bound the nobles, she deliberately slowed down the entire process so that the nobles could feel the difference between technology and reality. Tormenting was tormenting, but the main show had to come. After deciding to accept the good intentions from the administration and the army, Euphemia held the cube with both hands and led everyone out of the audience hall. Once again, they came to the royal square. Then, the cube held in Euphemia's palm suddenly shot out a beam of light. It shot straight up into the sky until it penetrated the atmosphere and accurately hit a node in the void. In an instant, above the 9 heavens, 7 colors circulated, streaks of light rippled in the pitch-black depths of space. And in the center of these ripples, a ray of light suddenly tore apart the ripples, revealing the colorful and bizarre world behind it. "It's that world. Half a month ago, we saw it." The nobles pointed at the change that happened above the 9 heavens in surprise. The shadow appeared while everyone was discussing the sun. No, it was not the sun. But above the 9 heavens, there was an additional ray of light that was enough to compete with the bright sun. On the ground, no one could see the true body of this ray of light clearly. The only thing they could do was to feel the rising heat and the light that almost stole all their vision. "Engrave your mark, Your Majesty." Standing beside Euphemia, Himimi said softly. Euphemia nodded, put her palms together, and gathered the core in her chest. A light flashed. The core that was gathered in her chest suddenly turned into a stream of light and flew to Euphemia's glabella and merged into it, leaving behind a beautiful prismatic mark. The throne of command. Euphemia's gaze moved slightly, and a huge beam of gravity cast down from the 9 heavens, enveloping everyone, including her. In just a short moment, Euphemia had brought everyone away from the ground and to the throne of command in the deep space above the 9 heavens. Confirm control. Confirm life characteristics. Confirm spiritual characteristics. All conditions met. Welcome, Your Majesty, Empress Euphemia. The intelligent core of the throne of command is at your service. Before everyone could regain their footing and react to the sudden change in front of them, a slightly cold electronic synthesized voice came from the sky. Intelligent core? Tell me your name. Ray Minkai's eyes widened slightly, and he suddenly felt that the big gift package sent by the administration this time was a little hot. Confirm voice characteristics. Confirm life characteristics. Confirm spiritual characteristics. Sir Knight, the Intelligent Core 01 is at your service. Ray Minkai did not continue to ask the Intelligent Core, but looked around the space he was in now. This is a space station. The throne of command is a space station? Yes and no. Mimi glanced at the crowd, who had not yet reacted, and shook her finger. Your Majesty, you can ask 01 any questions. She will answer everything for you. Euphemia and Ray Minkai looked at each other and nodded. 01, what can you do? Your Majesty, the throne of command has a trading module for space trade, an experimental module for the development and manufacturing of new warships and mobile weapons, and many other modules for the living needs of the station personnel. In addition, the throne of command can switch to combat mode in a short period of time. When the time comes, the supergravity cannon equipped by the throne of command will be the most powerful trump card of the throne of command. In other words, this is a space station that integrates attack and defense. Ray Minkai asked. Yes. However, most of the functions of the throne of command are prepared for transdimensional trade. This was the answer of the Intelligent Core. In this way, we can directly skip the step of interstellar construction and establish trade with the City of Star Glory in a short period of time. After Euphemia confirmed the ability of the throne of command, she suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Although her previous declaration was so tough, in reality, if she really wanted to implement it, there would be some disharmonious conflicts. Now, the appearance of the throne of command perfectly solved this problem. Even if these nobles had the ability to reach the sky, they would not be able to affect the advancement of the throne of command. Yes. As we said before, while the Britannia Empire provides the administration with cherrystone resources, we will also provide you with nuclear fusion technology free of charge to help you get rid of your dependence on cherrystone as soon as possible. In the throne of command, under the gaze of most of the nobles who still did not understand the situation, Euphemia issued the first order of the new emperor. From today onwards, the Britannia Empire fully collected cherrystone resources and accelerated the development and research of nuclear fusion technology. What made Euphemia make such a decision, in addition to becoming another satellite of Earth, was that Mimi did not hesitate to take out the nuclear fusion technology that the Britannia Empire could digest on the spot and gave it to Euphemia. This is the deposit. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. More than a few months had passed since the new emperor ascended the throne. With the generous help of the administration, the top scientists in the Lucio world, including Royd, were all sent back to the furnace for further study. The purpose was to digest the nuclear fusion technology from the other world as soon as possible. However, in the process of digesting and practicing, Royd's situation was not very optimistic. As a matter of fact, the doctor, who boasted that he was going to create the strongest KMF body, wailed. How is this formula calculated? No matter how I calculated, it was wrong. Why? Royd, calm down. You explained it incorrectly. which led to the entire formula being wrong. Cecil, who had been watching from the side, quickly solved Royd's dilemma. Before Royd could complain about how Cecil could solve his problem, Cecil said, "You're right. You're right. Royd, it seems that it's time for the knight to go to war. Actually, Sir Jean sent someone to ask if the new Lancelot is ready." Lancelot? Sir Royd, whose mind was filled with formulas, tilted his head and responded with a dull expression. Obviously, the latest Lancelot was probably still in the blueprint. Chapter 256. The latest model of the Lancelot had not been recharged yet. Because a certain irresponsible guy was addicted to learning, Ray Minkai could only use the original Lancelot. As for the pirate Gouda, it had become the symbol of Euphemia's military power. In order to publicize Euphemia's military achievements, Sconazel suggested that Euphemia's experience of piloting the pirate Gouda on the Europa battlefield be publicized. With this, in the eyes of the people, the image of a wise and powerful empress would be created. Euphemia was not willing to accept this, but under Cornelia's persuasion, she finally nodded. Therefore, while Euphemia was entangled in political affairs, the pirate Gouda, as her symbol, could not move. It could only stand silently behind the throne and temporarily act as the symbol of imperial power. Time passed quickly. No matter how busy the world was, it was finally time for the administration to issue a mission. During this time, no matter how the Macross Windchime and the fairy searched together, the Dr. Ciceres group, who had been discovered many times, disappeared from the world again like a phantom, as if they never existed in the first place. However, outside the imperial capital of Pandora, the Europa battlefield, and even the traces of battle around the Gilkston kingdom proved that the invasion did indeed happen. It seems that the mouse slipped away from the cat's claws again. Our enemy's escape technique is advancing hand in hand with time. Looking at the report with no results, the captain of the Windchime, Hudson, sighed helplessly. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only accept the current situation and issued the order to return. Ray Minkai, I hope we can fight side by side again. Goodbye. After sending off the Macross Windchime, Ray Minkai also had an order in his hand. This was the order that he Mimi personally handed to him. At the same time, it was also information about the scepter that Sconazel handed to Euphemia and then to Himimi. The analysis report is based on the scepter. Below is the mission for you. This was the message that Himimi left behind when she handed the order to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai glanced at the cover with the logo of the City of Stars and flipped to the first page. What he saw was a series of data and formulas that Ray Minkai could not understand. Once he saw the data and formulas, Ray Minkai was dumbfounded on the spot. In desperation, Ray Minkai glanced at it and flipped to the last paragraph of the summary text. At this time, White Cat Zero's figure suddenly appeared on Lei Minkai's shoulder. State Zero, why are you here? Aren't you staying in your palace? Noticing the arrival of the White Cat, Ray Minkai was a little surprised. The White Cat, who had become the holy beast of the Empire, showed up in the form of a snow-white lion all day long. It brought its mates to wander around the palace all day and night. At first glance, it was like a lion patrolling its territory. I'm tired of strolling. The White Cat opened its mouth and said with a tone of annoyance. Ray Minkai glanced at State Zero, who had turned back into a white cat, curled his lips, and did not say anything more. It was good that it was tired. Otherwise, Ray Minkai would ask the White Cat to go out with him to carry out missions. And that scepter is also made of shards? Unlike Ray Minkai, who was imagining things, the sharp-eyed White Cat State Zero immediately saw the summary text. N. It's not a shard, but something created by imitating the shards using some technology that has not been analyzed yet. As he spoke, Ray Minkai, who was flipping through the pages, suddenly paused. Sensing the abnormality, the White Cat State Zero jumped lightly and landed on the table. It stretched out its paw and pressed the half-open page on the table. This is the reaction of the shards. The content that appeared in front of it made the white cat state zero fall into deep thought. Has the technology of that city reached the point where it can monitor the traces of the shards? No, it's not. It's a derivative of the reverse cracking technology based on the data that can be analyzed so far. Ray Minkai shook his head and put the document on the table. He leaned back in his chair and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. This is also a technological breakthrough brought about by the scepter. Although I don't want to admit it, the man named Chisali seems to have gone ahead of us. The White Cat State Zero was silent for a while. In other words, a part of the shards left behind by our hometown is likely to be controlled by the other party. Isn't this the obvious answer? State Zero, the Destructive Guardian, and the Scarlet Giant, even if they're not directly related to that man, they're probably indirectly related. Ray Minkai raised his hands and supported his chin. He pondered and said, "In the foreseeable future, as long as our goal does not change, I'm afraid we will meet that man again." Ka! The White Cat State Zero popped out its paw and pierced it deeply into the table. At that time, we will fight to the death. We will fight to the death. After the appearance of the former Nightmare Asmodai, Ray Minkai knew that the man hiding behind the scenes was probably related to the destruction of Soth's robot world. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Ray Minkai and the White Cat State Zero looked at each other and nodded. "Please come in." It was Veretta who opened the door. "Night Captain, I'm sorry. Sorry to disturb you." Veretta walked in and saw the White Cat State Zero squatting on the table. While showing a hint of surprise, she also bowed her head slightly and apologized. "No, don't worry about State Zero. Veretta, what's the matter?" Ray Minkai waved his hand. According to this time, Veretta should be dealing with matters related to the transformation of Q Department into the Personal Night Regiment. Why did she suddenly come here? Yes, emergency situation. Night Captain. The 11th Prince, Lou Lucio V. Britannia, is missing. Along with him, C is also missing. Lou Lucio is missing. The subfrigid zone was the world of the coniferous forest, and at the same time, it was also an area where people rarely went. In this dense forest, you could see reindeer, sable, and other common movements in the coniferous forest environment. You might also see ferocious wild bears, but it was very rare to see humans. Ka-cha, ka-cha. Dead leaves and branches were crushed, and the sound of snow being trampled on came from afar. As the sound of footsteps approached, the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. "Lou Lucio, why are you here?" Carrying a huge backpack that was at least 40 kilograms, a girl with long green hair, wearing thick winter clothes frowned and looked at the boy in front of her, who was also carrying the same weight. "Just follow me. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" CC. The long trek made the boy lose interest in talking, and the only thing left was the will to make the final dash to the finish line. However, at this crucial moment, the young girl behind him suddenly sat down on the thick layer of snow and shouted loudly, "I can't do it. I have no strength. I need a rest." The girl's complaint made the boy frown, but in the end, the boy turned around and walked to the girl's side, carefully leaned against the tree trunk, and sat down. Even a witch knows when to be tired. Lou Lucio looked at C, with a look of disdain. "Everyone knows how to be tired. Besides, I'm still an injured person." CC snorted coldly and pulled up her sleeves, revealing her scarred arm. Seeing the crisscrossing scars of varying depths, Lou Lucio fell silent. From what he knew, CC was undoubtedly an immortal witch. No matter what kind of wound, even if it was fatal, she could recover in a short period of time. But now, the wounds on CC's body were like gangrene attached to the bone, unable to be erased or healed. "What's wrong? Feeling guilty?" C glanced at the silent Lou Lucio. C had seen this look many times. As long as she exposed the scars on her body, Lou Lucio would be silent and stop quarreling with her. Indeed, it was boring. "Let's go." C exerted her strength and stood up again with a heavy backpack. Then, with steady and powerful steps, she walked towards her goal step by step. She didn't look like she was tired and couldn't walk anymore. Lucio frowned, but didn't say anything. He got up and followed behind Cece. However, before they had walked more than 10 meters, Cece, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped in her tracks. Lucio, are you blaming yourself? You're blaming yourself for not being able to protect Lilina, and you're also blaming yourself for not being able to protect me, right? Lucio stopped in his tracks and looked at Cece, whose back was facing him, and suddenly sneered. Yes, I'm blaming myself for not being able to protect Lilina, causing me to not know where she is until now. But I don't blame myself for not being able to protect you. Cece, don't forget, you're an immortal witch. As he spoke, Lucio raised his feet again, walked past Cece, and led the way again. However, seeing how Lucio was leading the way, Cece muttered under his breath, "You're right. You don't mean what you say." After a while, they could see their target in the distance. Cece stopped in her tracks again. Sensing Cece's movements, Lucio stopped and turned around, only to see Cece's serious face. Lucio, are you serious? Relying on yourself to find Lilina? Lucio lowered his gaze. After a while, he looked up and said seriously, "It doesn't matter if I'm serious or not. Right now, I only have one goal, and that is to find Lilina. I have to find Lilina. Isn't relying on the power of the Empire to find her a better choice?" Cece's suggestion was good. However, Lucio shook his head. "No, UFFI and the others won't be able to find Lilina, because the one who hid Lilina wasn't anyone else but me." Emperor Lucio was stunned for a moment, but after thinking about it, the possibility of this was indeed very high. During the days when she was imprisoned by Emperor Lucio, couldn't see Lilina at all. She could only hear the news of Lilina's safety from the Emperor. If there was anyone in this world who could grasp the clues of Lilina's whereabouts, it would be him. But the Emperor is dead. As the white mist puffed out, said a fact that Lucio couldn't refute. "Yes, he's dead." Lucio nodded. The touch of the blood still lingered on his face. Even though all of this happened in C's world, after returning to reality, Lucio could still clearly feel the touch at that time, and the last words left by the Emperor before his death. "Let's go. Cece, we'll be there soon." The two of them walked all the way into the depths of the coniferous forest. The wind started to blow. The stronger the wind blew the remaining snow, bringing a new round of snowstorm into the coniferous forest, covering the footsteps of the two people. Imperial capital, Pandora. After being busy for a few days, Veretta, who was commanding the intelligence personnel to collect information on Lucio's whereabouts, walked into Rei Mingkai's office with a solemn expression. She found that at this time in the office, besides Rei Mingkai and the White Cat Zero, there were a few more people in the office. The leaders were the new Empress Euphemia and Cornelia. "I'm very sorry. I didn't notice Your Majesty's arrival. It's really a sin." As soon as she saw Euphemia, Veretta immediately half-knelt on the ground and apologized repeatedly. "No, get up. Veretta, no need to be so polite. Tell me about your harvest." Euphemia waved her hand and signaled Veretta to get to the point. "Yes. According to the intelligence personnel's report, we have figured out the general movements of His Highness Lucio and Miss Cece. However, when the personnel sent later rushed to the target forest, they found that His Highness Lucio's traces had been erased by a snowstorm." Veretta introduced all the clues they had so far. Erased? As soon as Rei Mingkai heard this news, he immediately knew that it was not good. If Lucio and Cece wanted to avoid being tracked, it was undoubtedly difficult to find a needle in a haystack in the vast no-man's land. Not to mention, there was a snowstorm now. Rei Mingkai pondered for a moment. "Your Majesty, is there any news from Her Highness Nunnally?" Euphemia heard this and looked at Cornelia. Because Ray Minkai's Q department was busy transforming into the Queen's personal night regiment, he could only leave the task of finding Nunnally to Cornelia. Cornelia showed a trace of shame and helplessly shook her head. I personally searched the entire palace and interrogated everyone who saw Nunnally, but I didn't get any results. Cornelia paused for a moment and said a speculation that even she couldn't believe. It's as if Nunnally suddenly disappeared from this world. No one knows, and no one found out. How could it be? Euphemia also could not believe this speculation. No, maybe it's like this. Lay Minkai spoke of his own conjecture. If it's not like this, Lu Lucio would not suddenly leave without saying goodbye. After all, in this world, the Britannia Empire is powerful enough. However, if you look outside this world, the Britannia Empire is just a baby that can only crawl away. Therefore, Lu Lucio has probably found a way to find Nunnally. Lay Minkai lowered his head and looked at the analysis document on the table. Perhaps, in the future, we can meet Lu Lucio in a certain world. Chapter 257. Flames filled the sky, and yellow sand filled the air. No matter what kind of creature it was, when encountering such an extreme environment, it would fall into a state of near death. Kai, how long are we going to stay here? In the spaceport city that was connected to the spaceport, a white cat shook its fluffy body irritably, shaking off all the sand on its body. This was the 7th day since Ray Minkai and the white cat, State Zero, arrived at the spaceport city located in the depths of the desert. A week ago, Ray Minkai, who had finished all the things on hand, said goodbye to Euphemia and the others, who were temporarily unable to split away to carry out the patrol mission with him, and came to this world under the assignment of the Authority. A world that Ray Minkai felt familiar, nostalgic, and even faintly expectant. Although they stayed in the depths of the desert for 7 days, Ray Minkai's anticipation for what was about to happen did not diminish at all. Of course, a certain cat that was tormented by the sand in these 7 days was about to turn back into a steel lion. Ray Minkai, who was sitting on the beach chair, glanced at the white cat lying on the table and casually picked up the sky blue, translucent disc that was placed next to it. This was a trial by Dr. Shi Hui from the Ministry of Justice based on the technology reverse developed from the scepter that could control Black Sunderland. Although it was an experimental production, its function already met the current needs of Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai's thumb drew a half circle on the edge of the disc, and a projection screen lit up. Immediately after, a light spot that was sometimes bright and sometimes dark appeared on the edge of the screen. This may be a similar substance to the scepter, or even a reaction to the fragment you're looking for. Although we have not yet figured out the connection, if a reaction is really detected, then I don't need to say what it means, right? This was what Shi Hui of the Ministry of Justice had said when she handed the disc to Ray Minkai. At the same time, it was also why Ray Minkai had come to this world. Through reverse engineering, the Authority had developed 2 new pieces of equipment. One was the prototype that Ray Minkai had, and the other was the space-time detection radar that could be deployed in the endless space-time world. It was precisely because the latter had repeatedly issued the same alarm frequency during the boot test that the Authority's controller, Kreutzer, made the decision to let Ray Minkai carry out this mission. Any reaction? White Cat State Zero, who was tired of the yellow sand, glanced at Ray Minkai. Same old. Sometimes it was bright, and sometimes it was dark. Looks like it's still quite a distance away. Ray Minkai flipped his hand and placed the disc on the table. In fact, Ray Minkai could more or less guess the general direction of this light spot. But out of a cautious attitude, Ray Minkai waited for a certain person to appear before making a move. After all, this time, it was a certain person who was known as the disaster in human form, known as Brother Motivator Chi Li Guchiobi. Ray Minkai raised his head and looked at the looming shadow in the sky through the edge of the parasol. Spaceport. According to the calculation of time, something had probably started to happen up there. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai raised his right hand. The attendant in the shadows immediately stepped forward and asked respectfully, "Mr. Lay, is there anything I can help you with?" Although White Cat State Zero complained about eating sand here for a week, in fact, Ray Minkai did not mistreat himself in White Cat State Zero. "Mike, when's the next flight?" The attendant named Mike heard Ray Minkai's question and immediately replied cleverly, "Mr. Lay, according to the feedback from the spaceport, the next flight is in 3 hours. Is there anything I can help you with?" 3 hours? That's enough. Mike, the things I asked you to prepare 3 days ago, are they ready? Ray Minkai pondered for a moment and continued to ask. "Yes. Mr. Lay, the things you want to buy have been purchased and sent to your room." As he said this, Mike looked like he wanted to say something but hesitated. Obviously, he did not know if he should say something or not. "Mike, if you have something to say, say it." Ray Minkai glanced at Mike and could more or less guess. I'm afraid that Mike has already seen my arrangements in the past few days and has more or less guessed some clues. Now that he showed such a look, he was afraid that he had lost his big client, right? "Mr. Lay, now, the road to Jerfold has been blocked by a shocking number of troops. If you barge in rashly, I'm afraid your life will be in danger." Oh, he did not expect this seemingly ordinary attendant to know Jerfold's current situation. Was his actions too obvious? Ray Minkai smiled slightly and asked, "Is that so? Then, do you know which troops it is?" As he spoke, Ray Minkai took out a few bills. Instead of playing the art of language with this attendant, it would be better to be direct and straightforward. Sure enough, once he saw the bills in Ray Minkai's hand, Mike's eyes lit up as he told him the information he knew. It was said that the team called the Black Lightning Brigade had sealed off the road leading to Jeffrey. Also, I heard that they have at least 250 troops involved in this operation. Black Lightning? Hee, that doesn't sound like much. Okay, these are yours. Mike, help me prepare an off-road vehicle. Mr. Lay, you really want to go to Jerfold? Mike's shock made Ray Minkai laugh out loud. Ha ha, so what if I am? It's only 250 troops. Mike, go. Do as I say. Later, the reward will not be small. White Cat State Zero lowered its head and held the disc in its mouth. Then, it jumped and landed on Ray Minkai's shoulder, leaving with Ray Minkai. Only leaving behind. Mike, who was holding the bills that were slightly soaked in sweat, stared blankly at Ray Minkai's back as he left. 3 hours later, 3 fully loaded transport ships slowly landed in the port of this airport city. The cargo was also transported onto the hovercraft that had been waiting for a long time. Then, these hovercraft started up one by one and sailed out of the port, plunging into the boundless desert. This scene was captured by a hidden telescope in the distance. Kai, the person you are waiting for is in these hovercraft? White Cat State Zero's front paws stepped on the windowsill. Half of its body was out of the window as it looked back and forth between the hovercraft. As a strange creature that could freely switch between a steel lion and a cute white cat, this distance was not difficult for it. Yes, you can say that. Now in this world, there are only the two of us. Everything must be done carefully. Before confirming whether the target is what we are looking for, State Zero, you better not casually turn into a long-fanged lion. Ray Minkai put down the telescope and casually threw it on the co-pilot's seat. He was ready to start the off-road vehicle and follow the hovercraft from afar towards Gervais. It's just a mere 250 little ones. Why do we have to care about their existence? White Cat State Zero retracted into the car, jumped to the co-pilot's seat, and turned the telescope to the other side. That's right. Based on the strength of the long-fanged lion, the so-called Black Lightning Brigade was indeed nothing in his eyes. Ray Minkai was only worried about the Madhura Church and Malukia, who coveted Gervais. State Zero, what if I let you face 25,000 bespectacled dogs? The bespectacled dogs that Ray Minkai spoke over the mass-produced at ATM 09 ST, commonly known as bespectacled dogs. Their existence was not only the main force of the battlefield, but also the follow-up body of many other systems. Ray Minkai was about to face the ATM 09 DD the Black Lightning Brigade's black bespectacled dogs that were painted in black and equipped with an ECM interference antenna. Suddenly, White Cat State Zero raised its head and looked behind the car. Kai, pay attention to hiding. Something is flying towards here. Is it coming? Raymond Kai's eyes flashed. He already knew that the show was about to start. Rumble, as Raymond Kai turned the off-road vehicle in the opposite direction, trying not to be discovered, 3 shadows appeared from the southeast horizon and quickly flew towards the hovercraft that was heading towards Gervais along the sand dune. Black Dog, when the distance was about right, Ray Minkai stepped on the brakes and looked at the 3 black bespectacled dogs that were hanging by the helicopter. Should we go up now? White Cat State Zero jumped on the roof of the car and looked at the helicopter that dropped the black bespectacled dogs from afar. No. How many black dogs are there? Even Lancelot doesn't have to move. Let's just watch the show. While talking, Ray Minkai got off the off-road vehicle and opened the rear compartment. He looked at the rectangular wooden box wrapped in a layer of canvas and nodded. At most, we'll shoot a few shots from this distance. This was the item that Ray Minkai asked the attendant named Mike to buy. It was an anti-material weapon that could penetrate the armor from a distance of a kilometer. It was just that the price was a little expensive. Click. After some inspection, Ray Minkai found a sniping spot with a good view nearby. He pulled the bolt and loaded, waiting for the moment when the battle broke out. At this moment, the black bespectacled dogs landed safely and stabilized their bodies, they fired a barrage of bullets at the hovercraft in the front row. The whistling bullets effortlessly tore open the cargo containers loaded by the hovercraft. The goods inside, such as fruits and clothes, were all smashed. Even if fruits were a precious commodity on this planet, it was still unable to evoke the compassion of the pilot of the black spectacled dog who had pulled the trigger. Dong, 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 dong. In just a few breaths of time, under the barrage of bullets from the black bespectacled dogs, the 3 hovercraft in the front row were blown up in the blink of an eye. All the goods were destroyed. TSK. What a waste. These black dogs. After adjusting the magnification of the sniping scope, Ray Minkai cursed in a low voice. One of Ray Minkai's main expenses after living in this desert for a week was the expensive fruits. Looking at the smashed fruits on the ground, Ray Minkai's heart was filled with hatred. He could not wait to shoot the 2 black bespectacled dogs. However, the anti-material weapon Ray Minkai bought was not aimed at the black bespectacled dogs, but at the 3 helicopters that were hovering back and forth over the hills. At this time, the only black bespectacled dog that had not yet landed flew toward the 3 hovercraft behind with the help of the helicopter. Yes, that's it. Things were progressing step by step. So, under Ray Minkai's gaze, a young man with short blue hair, wearing a tattered cloak and red pressure suit, was holding a red-haired girl hostage from the hovercraft. It seemed that he wanted to use this to make the black bespectacled dogs hesitate. However, whether it was the blue-haired man or Ray Minkai, they both knew that the black dogs would not care about the girl's life. The reason why the blue-haired man did this was nothing more than to distance himself from the red-haired girl. It's starting. Moving the crosshair up, Ray Minkai's attention was all focused on the helicopters hovering in the sky. As long as the blue-haired man, Brother Incentive, Kiliguchubi attacked, Ray Minkai would immediately shoot down all the helicopters hovering in the sky. Dong, dong, dong. As expected, the black bespectacled dogs did not care about the red-haired girl's safety and directly fired. Kiligu, who was already prepared, pushed the red-haired girl away from him and rolled down the sand dune next to him. As the sand and dust flew, 2 remote control bombs were placed in the middle of the sand dune by Kiligu. Then, it was time to wait for the prey to take the bait. Boom! In an instant, when Kiligu was ready to be slaughtered, the black bespectacled dog finally could not hold back and finally crossed the sand dune and slid down the slope. Then, the violent explosion instantly blew up the black bespectacled dog. As the sand and dust flew into the air, Ray Minkai, who was already prepared, pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! A tongue of flame erupted, swept through the air, and accurately hit the closest helicopter to Ray Minkai's left. Pa! With a flash of fire, the glass of the helicopter's cockpit was instantly dyed. The helicopter, which lost control, spun powerlessly and quickly fell down the sand dune below. Boom! An explosion sounded. Another flash of fire flew across the sky. Another helicopter was hit, and it also suffered the same fate. Therefore, before the sand and dust that drowned the black bespectacled dog settled, the helicopters hovering above the sand dune were all shot down by Ray Minkai. The two black bespectacled dogs that were caught off guard by this change did not react in time. They still raised their weapons and desperately shot at the black bespectacled dog that was buried in the sand and dust. However, they did not know that the man who defeated their colleague was known as a life form with special abilities, a man who was almost immortal. Chapter 258. The battle didn't seem intense, but it could be described as refreshing. Killigoo killed the 3 black spectacled hounds with his flesh and blood. Ray Minkai tilted his head slightly, looked at the hovercraft behind him, and smiled slightly. When Killigoo killed the 3 black spectacled hounds with his flesh and blood, Ray Minkai drove his off-road vehicle to the center of the battlefield, beside the burning sand dune. Ray Minkai's appearance made the red-haired girl even more nervous, especially when she saw the unconscious Killigoo flying out of the thick smoke and falling weakly on the sand dune. Don't worry, I don't have any ill intentions. On the contrary, those 3 helicopters just now were shot down by me. Ray Minkai leaned half of his body out of the off-road vehicle and smiled in a friendly manner. He raised his hand and patted the anti-material weapon that still had a trace of warmth to prove that what he said was true. Helicopters? The red-haired girl was stunned. She really remembered that during the battle, just now, the helicopters hovering in the sky suddenly exploded for no reason in the blink of an eye. It's really you? Facing the red-haired girl's doubts, Ray Minkai decisively stretched out his hand and picked up the white cat state 0 from the passenger's seat and showed it to the red-haired girl. Look, how can a person who has such a cute cat be a bad person? Meow. The white cat state 0 showed a very cooperative and cute appearance, but in its heart, it was cursing Ray Minkai. Kai, you bastard. I'm a lion, a steel lion. I'm not a pet cat. The red-haired girl was silent, but her gaze shifted from the unconscious Killigoo to the hovercraft, and then to the unlucky uncle who had lost the hovercraft and its cargo. She silently accepted Ray Minkai's explanation and invited Ray Minkai to help move Killigoo and the unlucky uncle back to the hovercraft. Thank you. Are you traveling now? After settling everything, the red-haired girl glanced at the anti-material weapon in the off-road vehicle. This was a ruthless thing that could penetrate the armor from a long distance. It wasn't something that an ordinary person could have. Therefore, the red-haired girl still subconsciously avoided using words that would provoke Ray Minkai. And something like that. But my next stop is Geelfi. Miss, your destination is Geelfi too, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have attracted the attack of the group that sealed this area. Although Ray Minkai already knew the answer, he still pretended to be inquisitive on the surface, trying to get the red-haired girl to do the same. You want to come with me? The red-haired girl was very smart. If it is possible, the red-haired girl was silent again. But she quickly made a decision. Sure, you test has assessed TTTT. In addition, my name is Ray Minkai. Miss Sylvia Butler. Therefore, after the interlude of the Black Dog's attack, the hovercraft started again and drove towards Geelfi in the rolling sand. They didn't encounter any attacks for the rest of the journey, not even a shadow of a helicopter. This made Wei, who had been driving the hovercraft anxiously, breathe a sigh of relief. But when she saw Ray Minkai's off-road vehicle driving out of the rolling sand and dust and running in front of the hovercraft from time to time, she felt that it was far from time to time to relax. Compared to Wei, who was on tenterhooks, Ray Minkai was now somewhat flustered. There was no other reason. Previously, In order to gain Sylvia's trust, he suddenly picked up the white cat, State Zero, and asked it to act cute to please the girl. However, this trick, which had great lethality to most girls, did not achieve the expected effect. Moreover, it caused the white cat to be dissatisfied. Kai, you bastard. You actually asked me to please a human girl. The white cat, State Zero, popped out its claws and gestured back and forth on the driver's seat. There were bursts of terrifying growls from its throat. This is just a strategy. State Zero. It's not like this hasn't been done before. Why, now you're disgusted. Ray Minkai, who was steering the wheel, did not take the white cat, State Zero's arrogance to heart. The reason why he was like this was probably because he had been carefully served by the maids all day long. He had lived a comfortable life as an emperor, and it was the result of that. State Zero, have you forgotten what happened when we were escaping in the past? Raymond Kai's words made the white cat, State Zero, stunned. Kai, you've recovered your memory? The white cat, State Zero, was stunned for a moment and was obviously surprised. No, it's just a feeling. Ray Minkai changed gears, accelerated, and followed the hovercraft through the front gate. At this time, Ray Minkai and the white cat, State Zero, had already arrived at the destination of this trip, Free Trade City, Gulfy Creek. The off-road vehicle slowly stopped on the slightly fragmented wasteland. Ray Minkai casually put the anti-material weapon in the back seat and covered it with a piece of canvas before leaving the off-road vehicle. On his shoulder sat a white cat. Oh, you're the young man who saved Sylvia? As soon as he got off the vehicle, Ray Minkai heard someone greeting him from behind. Ray Minkai turned around and saw a middle-aged man with dark skin, light brown short hair, and a big nose standing behind him with a smile on his face. Ray Minkai, this is my name. As for Miss Sylvia, I just happened to meet her on the way. What's more, the one who defeated the enemy was not me, but the unconscious man. Ray Minkai smiled faintly, not showing the slightest bit of arrogance from claiming credit. Hearing this, the man with the big nose was stunned for a moment, and then went forward to pat Ray Minkai's shoulder to talk, but was shocked by the white cat's paw that popped out. In the end, he could only smile bitterly and put down his right hand. Ahaha, yes, I've already heard the details from Sylvia. But no matter what, the person who killed the helicopter is still you. Your name is Lei, and this name is a bit hard to pronounce. Looking at the man with the big nose who was a bit confused about his name, Ray Minkai shook his head slightly. Uncle, you can just call me Kai. Yes, Kai. That's much easier to pronounce. The man with the big nose laughed, extended his right hand, and introduced himself. I'm Sylvia's father, Barnilla Butler. Thank you very much, Kai, for saving my daughter. No need. It's just a small matter. It seemed that the man with the big nose, Barnilla Butler, saw himself and Zilligu as Sylvia's saviors. But if he wanted to come back, this was bound to happen. After all, the man in front of him, Barnilla Butler, had fought alongside Zilliga 30 years ago and successfully survived the halo of being a jinx. In the end, he married Sylvia's mother, Coco, and became a true winner in life. So, when his former comrade reappeared, another young and promising man also became his daughter's savior. Cough, cough, cough. It seemed that he had gone off topic. Ray Minkai, who hurriedly stopped, turned his head slightly and saw the look of ridicule in the eyes of the white cat. Obviously, this fellow also thought of the same thing as Ray Minkai. If it weren't for the fact that there were outsiders present, the white cat would have ridiculed Ray Minkai for shooting himself in the foot. Cough, cough. Ray Minkai cleared his throat. Mr. Barnilla Butler, I don't know if I can go to Geraldine's market. I'm very interested in this city. No need to call me Mister. Just call me by my name. Kai, if you want to walk around the streets, why don't you wait for me to finish my work? All right, then, I'll wait for you here. Barnilla. Okay. While Barnilla was busy, the white cat jumped onto the roof of the off-road vehicle and looked up at the other side of the canyon that was used as a loading and unloading area. You don't know what's good for you. The white cat's voice suddenly turned cold, and Ray Minkai also looked in the same direction, but he couldn't find any clues. State Zero, what do you see? The white cat narrowed its eyes and opened its mouth slightly. No, it's just a feeling. Kai, open that disc and take a look. Ray Minkai did as he was told. With a flash of light, a light spot appeared on the screen of the disc. And this light spot was the source of the reaction that Ray Minkai detected before. At this moment, the position of this light spot was actually so close to where Ray Minkai and the others were, so close that it could be described as being within reach. But before Ray Minkai could carefully distinguish the distance between this light spot and them, this light spot suddenly seemed to have a pair of wings and suddenly accelerated away from its current position. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the edge of the disc screen, just like the previous detection, faintly discernible. What's going on? Have we been discovered? Ray Minkai frowned and thought of a possibility. No, we haven't been discovered. Maybe the enemy hasn't figured out the knack here. The white cat swayed its tail, lowered its body, and jumped onto Ray Minkai's shoulder. Let's go. We still need to walk into the city to see the details. Okay. Vanilla's movements were very fast. Although he was getting older, in terms of the technology of operating the machine, he was not inferior at all. This was also one of the factors that allowed him to survive under the halo of the heavenly curse Lone Star. Kai, we have to go now. I'm in a hurry. Vanilla's face was full of anxiety. After hurriedly leaving a sentence, he quickly ran in front to lead the way. Of course, this was caused by Vanilla's other identity. Calculating the time, this should be the routine assembly of the Mathiaru Church, which had sheltered this free trade city of Jeffrey for thousands of years on the central street of this city. At the assembly, the citizens of Jeffrey could speak of their difficulties, depression, and even ask for help from the church. These complaints would be comforted and helped by the elders. This was the protection of the Mathiara Church, since Jeffrey received the protection of the Mathiara Church 1,000 years ago. Therefore, as an important member, Vanilla naturally needed to attend. Is it the church again? Looking at Vanilla, who had joined the ranks of the elders and was being respectfully welcomed by many citizens, walking to the center of the street, the white cat showed a trace of contempt. The Mathiara Church. Suddenly, a light flashed in Ray Minkai's mind. If the detected light spot was a fragment, then the power or person who coveted the power contained in the fragment was very likely to be from the declining Mathiara Church. He remembered that 30 years ago, the Mathiara Church, which was at its peak, was caught in a power struggle. They desperately tried to forcibly awaken Zirigu and Fianna, who had sealed themselves. They used the warriors of the next era, who were called the Shield of Order, to attack the untouchable Zirigu Cupid. In the end, they suffered a crushing defeat, and the church's prestige plummeted. Now, in this current situation where the church was powerless to provide shelter for Jerfi, in addition to the ambitious Basoto Garagashman, a newly appointed ambitious person who was unwilling to fail in the border region's red cardinal selection and came to Jerfi, wait. Another light flashed. If there was one person in this city who desired power the most, it would probably be Gashman, who was unwilling to fail. He was brooding over his failure, and even secretly used some means in an attempt to attack a higher position. Now, he was probably looking for more powerful forces to pave the way for himself. In the original work, as an important member of the Mathiara Church, he did not hesitate to cooperate with the enemy, the Black Lightning Brigade, in an attempt to control this free trade city, and from there, control the higher buildings of the church. Thus, after thinking carefully, Ray Minkai felt that it was necessary to find clues about Gashman. Right now, there was an opportunity. Vanilla Butler, his son, Sordio Butler, was probably the breakthrough. State Zero, have you heard of a church whose teachings are all about fighting, fighting and fighting? What's that? Idiots? If they only know how to fight, then it's just an endless destruction. White Cat State Zero twitched the corner of his mouth. Yes, but the appearance of this church is inevitable. After all, no matter which era it is, after a huge war that lasted for hundreds of years and countless casualties, there will be some unpredictable results. Lei Mingkai's gaze fell upon what was perhaps the last of the church's sanity, the remaining elders who had achieved great results. Next, we're going to come into contact with these lunatics. No, maybe the poor people who were bewitched by Gashman. Hearing this, White Cat State Zero sneered a few times, flicked its sharp claws, and waved it. Bewitched? No matter which world, there will always be some young people who are so easily bewitched. It's really funny that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.